you're off the team.
You're off the team.
It's real easy.
Get your packing slip and you're out of there, right?
Yeah.
I find it interesting, like how long you and I have been around each other. And we go back to some of those Fat Owl days.
Dude,
I think the Fat Owl is like dead. I got to be honest with you, man. You made such improvements over the years.
Listen, I know what's going on here. I know what's going on with Slingshot. We're going to start making briefs soon, and then it's going to be a Slingshot that you can wear as a shirt. I get it. And then we both balloon back up and get back into geared lifting.
I do have lawyers. This is all proprietary information. So, yeah. You're not supposed to be releasing this information quite yet.
Yeah, it's the Slingshot with a back.
What's this owl thing about?
Fat Owl.
Yeah.
I think we'd met years before. I'd come out here and actually trained.
Champion? ?
At the original super training, right? Oh, not the original, but when you were still at Midtown. And I came out and trained, and we ended up doing some shirted stuff and working together, and then ran into each other at the Arnold, and I had glasses, and I was fat, and no facial hair. And I remember we chatted for a while, and then you said something to Burdick. You were like, "Who is that?" You knew me, and it was one of those I know who that is, but I can't ask.
Yeah, he's been to my gym or something. Yeah.
And he's like, "That's Matt Vincent. He's a world champion in the Highland Games." And you're like, "World champion? Looks like a fat owl." That was it. Yeah. Sure enough, you're not wrong.
Yeah, the Fat Owl.
I was thinking about this too. On the way here, I was like, "I bet your team could find the first time I was on your podcast because we were at the old gym, right?
Yeah.
The difference that we both look.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Since then, I'm 70 pounds down.
Yeah, you were on the original podcast. I mean,
right.
you a lot of people aren't aware of the greatness that they're in the presence of right now.
In fact, yes,
because you've set records on our podcast.
That's true. Yeah, I've been a good guest.
Most waste of people's time. I mean, you're definitely on top of the list.
That's not ideal.
Worse, no. But we've had you on the podcast a shitload of times.
Yeah.
One with Kelly Starrett where we went 3.5 hours or something like that. And, we've been breaking all kinds of records doing this stuff.
Good, man.
But, yeah, we both made a lot of progress. We both made a shit ton of changes.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. Well, I mean, but I think you have to,
Do you get that
right?
sometimes that people say you changed so much, almost in a negative way? Do you get that sometimes?
Yeah, of course, right? I've definitely got people now, especially with the YouTube.
Wow.
Yeah,
oh
people.
My gosh.
He is. He looks like he's been stung by bees.
We are both off the team.
The face fat.
He looks like Macaulay Culkin at the end of My Girl when he's dead from bee stings. But
So
I think you still wear that
Is that your brother?
That is Andy, yeah.
Oh, my God.
Also no beard. I think
Guys,
we were
nice.
also pretty lit by the time we got there. We went to Burger Saloon. And
You're
drank
like
too
a
much.
different color. How did you get that pale?
It's winter. I don't know.
Yeah, that's peak performance, though, man.
Oof. Well, that is not wrong.
Yeah.
That is the strongest and most athletic I have ever been. Is there?
There we go.
I now look like an athlete.
Well, so that's a a thing that you tend to kind of undersell. LSU.
Yeah.
That's not chump change going to LSU. That's a big deal.
Yeah, track and field there was fun.
They rock in track and field.
Yeah, they're very, very good.
They're good in baseball. They're good in football. They're good in a lot of sports.
Yeah, big D1 SEC school, and track and field is cool. I wasn't okay. I think my best finish during college track and field was I took a second at an SEC's in shot put.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Shit.
Never went to nationals or anything like that. So.
And as shot putters go, I mean, even though you were chubbier, you
Yes.
weren't huge. Shot putters are normally huge.
Yeah. There's definitely some big boys. I mean, you guys have had Reese in and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And Reese is a big boy.
He is.
And he's easy to underestimate looking at the guy. You wouldn't think a ton, but the guy hasn't done anything over 3 reps his entire life. Why would you? He's got to be super fast and explosive for a half second.
Right.
And then hang out for 10 minutes.
Yeah, we did some higher rep stuff when he was here, and he was dying.
You mean 4s?
We were doing sets of 8 in the warm-up. He's like, I'm not used to this.
No,
He's
terrible.
He's like, my legs feel weird. I was like, that's a pump.
It's blood. It's blood flow.
Yeah.
No, he's done nothing but build super dense muscle since he was 10.
He's a mutant.
Yeah, he's a mutant.
Back to the changes. You get people kind of...
Yeah, of course, right? Because, I mean, the YouTube stuff went that way a long time where I was doing vlogging, and I'd done a daily video essentially for couple over a year, over a year. And for the following I've built there, it's one of these days something's going to catch. But it's going to change, man. Like, I'm not competing anymore. And like, then I'm injured. Like, I can't throw. I can't even lift the way that I wanted to lift. And like, I did a bunch of videos, documenting recovery and coming back from knee surgery. And like, I had 8 surgeries in 3 years. Like, how many times am I going to document that surgery again? Like, I don't want to tell that story anymore. It's been told. And so it needed to change. And people are like, originally I got on the channel because you were throwing and doing this. I'm like, cool, man. There's other channels. Find one that you're into. Like, this one's changing. Deal with it.
Yeah, I don't do that anymore. And also, where were you guys when I was doing it? Because like maybe it didn't have that many views or something. Right. Like, I'm thinking the same thing about teaching the bench. Like, can you do a video talking about the lockout?
Like, you mean the other 10?
Yeah, we've done a million.
There's a search function right here on YouTube. Well, I looked at, like, I went back the other day and looked at like old videos, right? Like my first ones. And there's some really good stuff that I need to revisit and do throwback to. Because like, I have a video where I go carry the Husafell stone in Iceland, and the guy with me cheering me on is Magnus for Magnuson. This video's got like 380 views. It's like, no one gives a shit.
Holy crap.
And like,
doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
That's what I was doing. And things have changed.
How have you been able to make a permanent change? Let's just kind of say, like, we can talk about mindset and other things later, but just from a physique standpoint, because that's a huge thing for people. I was just talking to Andrew earlier today, and it was like, we could get you abs probably in like 6 or 8 weeks.
Right.
We can buckle you down, and we can really focus on it. And Nsima's got a lot of great information. I got a lot of good information, and we can get you there. If you follow it.
If that's what you want.
Right. You'd have abs. But at the same time, it's like, what's next? What's next? And so for you, this process has taken many, many, many years. This hasn't not been a 12-week program.
3 years is essentially when I first started losing weight, from 285 to where I'm at now at 230.
Lose, gain,
gain. It's a little bit up and down, right? Because sometimes you know that you've lost weight too fast and it's not sustainable. And so if you maintain that, at some point it's going to crash. And then like, well, if I'm only eating 1,200 calories a day right now, how do I cut more calories? Yeah. What, am I going to 800? You can't do that. And then your body's just like, cool, we're starving. We're not getting rid of shit anymore. And so, I mean, ideally it's eat the most you can and still lose weight. Or, make those changes. And for me, it was, dude, I can't be fat and weak. If I was going to be fat and able to compete and be strong and be the best in the world and the thing that I gave a shit about, then like, we're building this for a purpose. This is the machine that we're building, and it's built to perform, and it does its job. Well, I don't need it to do that job anymore. And two, like, I can't train the way that I really love to train, which was how I was to compete, really explosive stuff and being fast. So I can't train that way anymore. So I've got to make changes. And I operate much better with a carrot out in front of me to chase. And so like, okay, cool. The new goal is weight loss, which means fuck strength. Fuck this. We're going to lose weight. The scale needs to move.
And just the same way you attack strength, maybe you took it to an extreme sometimes and you're like, well, I better pump the brakes.
Of course.
I lost weight too fast. This doesn't really look good, right?
Yeah. It just, you end up losing too much and you lose that full feeling of actually having some muscle. And one of the hard parts of doing keto as long as I did was it's really tough to get a pump on keto if you're really deep in it. Like, you just don't ever feel it. And so, I mean, you can do a ton of volume, but it's not going to build muscle the same way because you're in a deficit.
And there's people right now complaining, that are listening to this. They're like, you can build muscle on keto, but
of course you can build muscle on keto. But it's really hard to build muscle on a caloric deficit.
Right.
And at the end of the day, whether that 3 years, whether it's the 8+ months I did carnivore very strict, or the 2.5 years that I maintained keto, or the vertical stuff I'm doing right now and still dropping weight, it doesn't matter which of those you choose. Weight loss and weight gain are independent of the type of diet you want to run. If you want to run a diet to lose weight, you have to be in a caloric deficit.
Also independent of your training.
Yes.
They don't necessarily have anything to do with each other. They can. I mean, you can do a workout that, you condense the workout and you work out a little faster, and
Yep.
maybe you burn more calories.
Maybe.
Maybe somebody can make an argument that it burns a little bit more fat, but
But what percentage are we talking
Right.
about, right? Like 100
Really-
extra calories during your workout? Like,
Yeah.
we're talking about a Hershey's Kisses.
yeah, it's not a huge difference whether you're doing sets of 5 or sets of 12.
No. I mean, the training is a must. Just mostly for me, for sanity. Like, I need it. I need that to keep things moving. Because for training for me allows... It's like I can make the body do a thing that I don't really have to think about a ton. And so it's that mindfulness bit that the brain can start to be free and think about other stuff and solve problems that I've got with my life or day or work or problem solve because the body's busy. And like dietary wise, it just was something that like I need rules that are very, very simple that I can't build myself a loophole around. I'm too fat inside, like emotionally in
Period.
my heart.
End of podcast.
Done. Like I'm too fat internally to do like a if it fits your macros type thing.
Yeah.
I will completely cheat and be like, well, this is fine. It's not this bowl of cereal that's the real problem. No one got fat off a bowl of cereal, as I say that for the 100th time that week. But I mean, the other stuff was really simple. It's like, okay, cool. I'm going to eat meat. How long can we do that? I don't know. Let's find out.
Tastes pretty good.
Tastes pretty good. And honestly, like, man, I'm stoked eating a ribeye and an avocado or a salad.
Yeah.
I can eat that 3 times a day and be pumped. I like the intermittent fasting. I've never been a breakfast person anyway, and I really like coffee.
How dumb did you think it was when you first started to hear people talk about it?
When I started hearing people talk about it and acting like this was the magic thing to drop fat, I'm like, oh, come on, man. Like nothing's the magic thing.
Right.
It's still a deficit. And what this does was shorten the window up that I'm eating food. So I eat less food. Like,
Cutting out carbs.
no, all the diets work.
Eat less food.
All the diets work. That's the thing. Like, you can gain size doing carnivore and keto. Just eat a surplus of calories.
I don't
and
like
train more.
what you're saying right now. I think
This
this
is
is all
bullshit.
I think this is all lies.
But yo, you said right now you're doing the vertical diet and you're dropping weight pretty fast.
Because I'm still in a deficit.
Because you're still exactly
Yeah.
you're still in a deficit. I'm curious if you go back, like, would you have just wanted to do vertical rather than doing keto for so long?
No.
Or no?
No.
So what was keto for then?
So keto essentially for me was I needed a change and I needed some really strict rules to figure out how many calories I'm eating, what portion size looked like, because these were things that were just fucking out of control. And so being able to do that for as long as I did gave me some real insight to what food was. Also, I think keto gives you a chance to clear your gut of trash and of bad microbiotics and stuff like that. I think that plays a really big part in it. Like one of the easiest ways I kind of describe it to people is like, that the first 2 weeks of getting rid of sugar, like that craving you get for sugar. I was like, easiest way to think about that is you're not really craving sugar. Your body has yeast in it and in the gut. And so yeast, in the same way they make beer, shits out alcohol, which makes you fat, and converts the body that way. So the same way you make beer, the yeast dies when it runs out of sugar and stops making alcohol in the beer. Well, the yeast in your stomach and gut dies when it stops getting sugar. And so that's what the craving is the yeast actually telling you, I'm fucking dying. Get us sugar.
Well, it's a good analogy because it helps explain, why can't we just have a Snickers bar and be totally fine for a month?
I
You have
think
to
at
have
a certain
75
point,
of them because your
Yeah.
your stomach is like
Yeah.
wanting it.
Well, it's because it's sick.
They're used to it. Yeah.
Yeah, that you've taught the machine that this is what we eat. And so it learns to digest garbage.
Yeah.
Kinda.
And it'll digest that bullshit better than the regular foods at
Right.
first, right?
Right, at first. And so, man, your gut health is a big part of it. And so learning that bit and then saying like, okay, so let's get through this 2-week period. And then those cravings do go away. Now your shit changes. Your poop changes a little bit. And it has this weird streak where you kind of smell bread and like beer in your shit. But then it's gone. And now you can re-fuck this up by adding that back into your diet. So you just stay strict. And man, I handle food and diet like an addict. It is, I just have to eat good this meal. I'll deal with the next meal when I get to it, but let's just make good decisions this meal right now. Well, I don't know what dinner's going to be. I'm not saying like you don't ever get, you know, I don't ever get that Snickers bar again, or I don't ever get a piece of cake. Let's just eat this meal right. And then we'll eat the next one right. And then build that momentum. And then at some point, like, you feel good. And I mean, people with keto, to me, it just got crazy with people wanting to follow the rules. And so I still get questions with that. Like, are you following keto? And I've answered now for the last year, despite that being, I am doing a higher fat diet. I'm not tracking ketosis. So I'm not going to tell you I'm doing keto. I'm doing a high fat diet. My main fuel source is going to be fat. But if I'm not tracking ketosis, then I'm not doing keto. And doing carnivore isn't necessarily a keto diet. You know, what I did think both of those really helped that don't get talked about is both of them are gluten-free for the most part. Mm-hmm. And I don't really have a ton of food allergies, but gluten still causes a ton of inflammation. That was another really big benefit for me that got me changed and sorted, was whatever I can do to steal a couple points of pain away from my knee. And for the last 3 years of being in chronic pain, if I can do an anti-inflammatory diet and I don't have to take medicine that fucks up my stomach, cool. Let's try that. Let's try it.
Yeah.
What's the harm in that? And then you have an opinion.
People get so worried too about like not eating any carbs. Like if you're doing like a carnivore diet, and it's like, well, there's going to be days where you kind of mess up, you know, so it'll like auto regulate anyway. You're going to eat some carbs here and there, and you'll have some glucose and you'll have some carbohydrates back in your system. And we know that you don't necessarily need them, you know, to like sustain life, but
correct,
they can be crucial in terms of like your performance. And that's probably why you shifted into something more like the vertical diet. But something really important to point out is that your metabolism changes a lot. And a lot of people talk about the metabolism, but basically you had a certain energy requirement when you were heavier.
Yep.
And your sleep probably wasn't as good. You were probably a little bit more lethargic, even though you got a lot of work done and you were still productive and you were world champion multiple times. You were still able to produce. Your caloric requirements were probably lower at that time because you were fatter. Your body fat percentage was much higher.
Yeah, my metabolism was garbage.
And so now you have your metabolism kind of working in your favor, and now you can feed it things that will allow your performance to be better, which will also alter the metabolism. You know, people always kind of forget about the training. The training is a huge element. There's so much that can be done through the training once you get kind of over the hump. But the way that a lot of people should be looking at this, and we talk about like the white belt mentality a lot here, is you should kind of think about it as progressing from one belt to another.
Sure.
When you're dropping weight, when you go from being 270 to 260, you should be like, I now have the knowledge to be in the 260 to 250 range, and I'm not going to go back the other way. They don't take a black belt and make them a white belt ever again. You're black belt forever is my understanding of how it works. So you want to try to progress and kind of kiss all that shit goodbye that happened in the past.
Man, it's really tough that once you know a thing, to purposely ignore it. Like that one's always been really hard for me because like then it's a choice. Like it's one thing that you can say like, look, that they don't know better. But once you know and people are educated, like it's really hard to be like, fuck it. I'm going to plow through this anyway and then complain. And there's so much of that. It's that white belt mentality. Like take time to learn. It's amazing when I first started saying like, okay, I'm injured. Now the goal is I'm going to drop weight. And people are like, okay, cool. So you're going to do keto. What are you thinking about cheat meals? And I'm just like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've had 34 years of cheat meals. Like, let's hit the brakes a little bit and accomplish some shit before we start giving ourselves this pat on the back. Like, do the work and suffer a little, man. Like, we've been on easy street. And, man, the diet is so much more a part of it than the training. The training for guys like us it's going to happen. It's not a thing that's like, well, I have to go to the gym. It's like, I'm going to the gym. This needs to happen today so I keep my shit together. And yeah, there's tons you can do, right? Like whether you want to do fasted cardio, there's a bunch of little tweaks and things like that, but you're not going to eat like trash and still do fasted cardio in the morning and think that that's the answer. Like those 45 minutes didn't undo the 3,000 calorie Saturday you had, you know, or the 3,000 calorie Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
You know, people that ask those questions like, man, I'm doing keto, you know, Monday through Friday. And on Saturdays, I like to have a couple beers and hang out with my friends. I'm like, oh, cool. You're blowing it. Because what's weight loss ideally? 1 to 2 pounds a week is super sustainable, and you can kind of do it, and it's real weight loss instead of your body freaking out and needing to put it back on. So it just, people want that. If it's 1 to 2 pounds a week, like weight loss is still like what, 3,600 calories equals a pound.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to be in a 3,600 calorie deficit during the week to lose a pound. You can fuck that up on a weekend and gain a pound.
Especially if your weekend starts on like a Thursday, you know.
Yeah.
A lot
As
of people,
I like them.
yeah, Thursday night football, and then they're eating and doing all kinds of other shit and getting way off track.
I've always like given my friends a hard time because essentially I don't have a job, like a real job.
A real job.
Yeah, we'll call it a real job. I've had real jobs, and what I currently do is not one of them.
Yeah.
And so like I'll just all of a sudden be like, "What's the freaking weekend, man?" And they're like, "It is Tuesday." And I'm like, "Exactly." We don't have weekends anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, you handle it from meal to meal. Do you still eat any of that trash you eat like ever? Or do you just
I'm a
stay
human.
away? Yeah.
I'm a human, and every once in a while, future me has to deal with today's decisions.
Okay.
And so, like, every once in a while, man, like, yeah, like, if I'm going to go to a celebration and someone's going to have something that's awesome, I'm going to eat.
Good.
You know, or rare times that I've decided to go to the movie theater, like, I'm going to eat a bucket of popcorn. Isn't the end of the world. Like, sort it out the next meal. Or whenever I do that, that's when it's really easy for me to switch back and be like, okay, the next 3 meals are going to be carnivore. And it rebalances.
Mm-hmm.
But it's got to be less than 5% of your meals get to be a fuck up. Because that's still a 95% average. You're still in the A range. You don't get to make C's all day and hope it's good to go. Like,
yeah.
you can just backtrack so fast, making poor decisions with it. And I just want to keep playing with it. And it's still deficit versus surplus, whatever it is you want to do. And so now that I've reached 230, I want to get a little leaner, but stay here and see what I need to stay here and live at 230 for probably the next 90 days so that this has now become a new set. And my body's like, okay, we can do 230. This really isn't an issue. And when I say 230, I mean 230 to 240. Like, as long as it is 2.3, I am claiming 230. That thing could be 239.8. We are 230, my friend.
I think it's important to have a range. You know, everybody, like, if you're a lot lighter, then 10 pounds would represent a larger percentage of your body weight, and it might not be wise to have a 10 pound range.
It's not a bad idea.
But for guys that are 220 plus, it probably makes some sense. But I always thought that was important.
That's 3 to 5%.
Yeah, you should have a little cushion. Think about just it's okay to gain a little bit of weight.
Well, stress, water, salt, like all these type of things. I don't track sodium in my diet, and so
yeah,
I mean,
hopefully nobody does.
No, I live in the South, man. Everything's covered in salt and deliciousness. So, like, I'm gonna get the bloat, and that's fine.
What's the simplest way to tell someone about a nutrition plan? Like, what's the way that you could sum it up the easiest to somebody that is 290 pounds right now and they just haven't figured it out?
The easiest thing, and I always try to equate this, like, how do I answer that? And it is like, I need to have a conversation with my mom, who's never trained, has never educated herself on any of this, right? And I'm like, okay, here's your diet. You get to eat these 3 things, and these are the only 3 rules that you have to follow all the time. Did it have a face? Cool, you get to eat that. Is it a green vegetable? The other thing, if it's not one of those 2, it has to be identified as a single ingredient. That's it. Eat, in fact, for the next 6 weeks, eat as much of those as you want. Like, it's hard to fuck that up. Like, man, and people with keto get weird on fruit because it's got sugar in it. And look, man, I've seen a bunch of episodes of My 600-Pound Life, and they have never carved someone out of a house surrounded by banana peels.
It's the apples, man.
Like, that's never been the instance. You know what I mean? I promise it ain't the fucking bananas keeping you fat. And so it's like, it's the egg rolls, not the ecstasy, is why I'm sick. Like, no, man. Like, Big picture items. Like, let's do these 3 and do them correctly for a long time. Yeah. And then we can adjust. And like, if we're doing that and we feel better, but we're not losing weight, let's figure it out. In fact, if you haven't ever dieted or given a shit about your food intake, if you follow those 3, you'll lose weight because your body's going to dump a ton of inflammation out of your gut. And just cut alcohol out.
You'll probably end up eating less. You'll probably get more nutrients.
Right. You're eating better foods.
Obesity is a nutrient deficient disease, and I think people always think they're getting a surplus. You know, something to think about with the ingredients is like, take some eggs, right? I think everyone like digs eggs for the most part. You take some eggs, right? And then you add in like cheese. Okay, now we have 2 ingredients. We just made the eggs taste better. Now, what if we wrap it in a tortilla? And what if we throw in sausage? And what if we throw in a little bit of potato? Now we can have a fucking party with that thing and eat those damn things all day long because it tastes so good.
It tastes great.
Like you don't know how to stop yourself from eating it.
Man, some meals, like you get celebrations and you get time in your life that it's time to party. Like, enjoy those parts of your life too. But there's plenty of meals that are just fuel. And treat those that way. Those are the ones that like we track and I don't fuck up. So that the once a month I'm going to be at a thing, or if I'm in Miami on a trip, like I want a Cuban sandwich, I'm eating it, you know, because if I got hit by a bus that afternoon and the last meal I had was just a bowl of chopped up old microwave steak, I'm super bummed. Like, you got to live too. Mm-hmm. And so like find that balance, but man, it ain't a 50-50 balance. It's like a 95-5. And you just got to hold it. Like, it's got to matter to you. If it doesn't matter to you, then it isn't going to work. And any of your friends and family who don't understand your diet and this, fuck them. They don't have to understand. Same way they don't have to understand your goals. They don't have to go to the gym. Who gives a shit if they understand what you're trying to accomplish in the gym? Find people that do. Stick around them. Get rid of those losers.
It has to matter enough to you. Like, you know, you can't let shit like slide downhill, you know, because it starts to slide downhill fast. You're like, okay, well, that wasn't that big a deal, and this isn't that big a deal, and that's not a bit. It's like, oh man, okay, well now, now you're really messing with fire.
You can really quick be like, it's not the one meal that made you fat. Well, you say that enough.
It's not the 2, yeah.
Yeah, it isn't the week of shitty meals, like, and the big one for me is like, as much as I travel, it takes a long time to change your head to. I travel. Like, this isn't a vacation. Like, I travel, so I don't eat like I'm on vacation. I eat the way I'm supposed to eat. I've also got to a point that it's very, very rarely to me of a meal or a trip that I've been on that the food remembers to be a highlight. Like, I remember going to restaurants and conversations and being with the people I'm at, but I can't tell you what the food was on my plate. You know, but man, I needed that cake. Like, I don't even have a thing to tell you about it. So if it's not going to register, who gives a shit?
Yeah.
Eat the steak.
Does the diet still feel like a diet for you at this point? Like you could...
No, it is life. This is a permanent change. I feel better. Yeah. I am going to operate this way.
Impossible to think about that when you were heavier, though, right?
Yeah, of course.
Like, if I was like, hey, man, here's what you're going to do, and you're going to do this forever, you'd be like, oh, my God, I'd rather you just blow my brains out.
Right. Like, oh, man. Yeah. God. And I think about the stuff that I was trying to convince myself was healthy years ago when I was eating, because I was big trying to do strongman and different shit like that. Just the surplus of calories. I remember like, oh, cool, well, chicken breast. We'll eat a ton of chicken breast because that's what you do. You're a meathead. And so it'd be like chicken breast that I would put in a wrap and then cover the wrap with hummus and sriracha. But I would eat it 5 times a day.
Sounds pretty damn good, though.
They're delicious.
Yeah.
But I would panini press it too, man. But no, like of course that's not working for me. And I'm also drinking a ton at that point. You know, not a ton, but I drank. I never really drank every day, but when I drank, I drank. And now I just don't.
At all?
Not really, man. Like 1 drink a month, maybe.
Wow. Yeah, I remember you and I went somewhere in Davis, and you're like, let's have a drink. And I was like, I don't really do that, but sure.
Yeah, right.
And we just had a beer or two, whatever. But yeah, I've I've been able to avoid that.
Yeah.
You know, and the people that are lucky enough to be able to avoid that one, I think that's huge because that's huge on your diet because you have a couple drinks and lowers your defenses, and then you're like, screw it, I'll have some cake and I'll have this, and I'll have next thing you know.
And look, and people, I did outside sales for 10 years in the petrochemical field, and so
Cement,
yes, and so many times, like, it's really easy to, because of your job, like, you'll convince yourself that, like, well, I entertain, and so it's weird to not have a drink if your client's having a drink or your boss is having a drink. Like, order a soda water with a lime. You have a thing in your hand that looks like a gin and tonic, but it doesn't have any calories in it. So just drink. Now, if personality-wise you feel you need a drink, like, sort your shit out. You don't. Like, man, you don't have to be that dude.
I always thought it was kind of a cool thing to, you know, just hold yourself to like a higher standard. Not that you're above anybody or anything else, but just like
It's just they're worse.
Yeah. You don't need that. Like you know, the people you see people getting served bread, and before the bread's even put down on the table, they're already like clearing it out
gone.
pretty much. And you
Tortilla
can kind of
chips
just,
at a Mexican restaurant is the real hard one.
I know, it is hard.
And with that one, don't touch them.
I'll
Either
just-
send them back,
Yeah,
or don't touch a single one. Because if you touch one,
you're done.
that gate has been opened.
Yeah, you're not
done.
turning back.
No.
But I always thought, you know, like, why not just think of yourself as like, I don't want to, like the other people in the booth that are hammering the garlic bread or whatever. I don't want to be like them. I don't want to look like them. I don't want anything to do with those fuckers.
Yeah, it's not Jay Cutler. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to look like Jay Cutler, but I want to look like him more than I want to look like Grimace.
Right? They have different. They clearly have different goals, right?
Right, slightly different body goals. So maybe there's something to learn from one side more than the other. And like whether it's been keto, carnivore, any of this, like there's still a lot that can be taken from look what bodybuilders do. These are the most muscular, leanest people on earth, and they are eating carbohydrates. Now, most of them, I really believe, start from a much smaller size, and it's taken a lot of work to get big. Whereas, like, I know myself and I know you want us to get big and strong. This is very, very easy, but it's going to be ugly. Like, it isn't going to be pretty, but we can put on size. I think, you're down 100 pounds.
Yeah.
I'm down 70 since my biggest. I think we could probably put that 170 back on in 30 days if we had to.
It sounds like a challenge.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Yep, some big boys. God damn.
I mean, I graduated high school at like 265. Whew. Like, I'm 35 pounds less than I graduated high school. Like most people, the day you meet them, that's the lightest they'll ever be for the rest of their life.
Yeah.
They will just gain weight.
They'll just get fatter.
Right, like I am in. I don't know what happens. Like, well, you gain less than 1 pound a month for the last decade.
No, it's because I'm getting
100
old.
pounds.
It's because I'm getting older.
Oh, you're older. It just doesn't work the same. You've just been eating garbage for 10 fucking years.
That's always a good one. It's because I'm getting older.
Yep.
You know, I actually don't even really know the science behind that. I don't even know how much truth there is. That I guess maybe you can make an argument that when you're 9, you move less. You move less when you're 59 as opposed to 9 years old.
Oh, sure. And 9-year-olds sprint everywhere.
Yeah,
Can you imagine living your life that way? You'd be so jacked.
Yeah, they like run around and jump randomly.
What a crazy person you would be if you just sprinted everywhere around the office from room to room.
Isn't that amazing?
Put a foot tracker on one of those kids.
Why do they do that?
They're
My
so
daughter will
small.
still do that. She's like 11. She'll still hustle around the house.
Because
I'm like,
nothing
young
hurts
joints.
yet.
Young joints.
They don't have bones. Truth
they're
is,
not-
your bones are made of stuff your muscles don't want. Everyone knows that.
they're not. I guess maybe they're not thinking about it.
No, they're not. And also, nothing hurts yet.
Yeah.
I mean, I think all at this point you'd have to do to really torture me is be like, we need you to sit cross-legged for 5 minutes. I'm like, whatever you need to know. Like, I'll tell you everything about it.
You're like, that shit would hurt.
No, it'd be terrible.
How's this knee replacement thing going?
Should have done it a year ago. Yeah. I've always heard that said from people who do it, and it's just true. It's different. And
So you were in a wrestling match, and
Yep.
Ric Flair came out, and he
Couldn't
put you in
get
the
to the
figure
ropes.
4 leg lock,
couldn't get to the
and that
ropes.
was it.
Yeah, it was 8 knee surgeries that didn't go well. And that's really the weird spot about mine is there wasn't this fall. Like there wasn't a catastrophic injury that really caused anything that I had going on. It was just wear and tear. So, I mean, I did the whole Highland Game career I did without an ACL. And that's really nothing magic. People do shit without ACLs all the time.
Now he's talking tough guy talk. I like this. I like where this is going.
I tore a meniscus. And so I went in and got that fixed. And when I talked to my doctor, he's like, well, your knee's not in great shape. We don't have a ton of cartilage over here. And this is looking this way. Like, you're on your way to knee replacement. I'm like, sick. And so he's like, so I was like, cool. We're going to finish this season 2016. Let's do the ACL replacement. Let's do a cleanup and do the meniscectomy. So I went in and did those things, and the ACL didn't take. And so when I went back in for my checkup, like 10 days after the surgery, they're like, well, the ACL didn't hold, so let's do it again. So now I've had a second ACL replacement in 4 weeks. And so did that one, full rehabbed for 4 months. Went in and got an MRI done, and it's gone. And my body's just rejecting cadaver tissue for whatever reason. Another ACL. And so now the knee's trashed. So we did this Oates procedure, which I really believe that one's the one that gave me the most trouble. And that's this, they cut these holes into the bottom of the femur and replace it with cartilage. Like, so cadaver cartilage. And so of the 3 holes, and we're talking about something 30 millimeter big, it's like a quarter. So they cut this hole in the bottom and they plug it. And one of them on the inside of my knee, the medial side, just never healed. And so there's always this void behind it. And so the bone never quite got blood flow back. And so for the 2.5 years after that, like every time I'd step or do something, it flexes. And so there was this stabbing pain. And to the point of like, you can't gut through it. It was just like a switch getting turned off of like, nope, we can't be in that position. So anything single leg support, like I just couldn't do. So chronic pain changes goals really quickly. From like, I'd like to get back into competing, like, nope, I want to not hurt. And chronic pain's tough, man. It make a coward out of anyone. Brings up some bad days. And it's like having someone tap you on the shoulder the whole day while you're trying to be busy and get shit done, and like pulling at your shirt and asking you like, hey, I need your attention. Hey. And as soon as you stop to give it attention, it doesn't give a shit. It just keeps saying, hey. And you don't ever get to turn it off. And like, I see people that can freak out going through it, man, because I mean, like I've never really battled with depression stuff, but I bet it's the same way, that it's always this thing. And I think people just get so desperate with pain or whatever it is that it gets to this point of like, I just need 10 fucking minutes, man. If you can give me this time that this doesn't hurt, I can recharge and I can deal with it again. But you don't ever get a break. It's Chinese water torture. And it'll break you. And it does.
Depression never settled in during all these surgeries and stuff?
I get weird post-surgery because of pain meds, but I'd get off them as soon as I could. I believe pain meds serve a purpose. Like if my pain gets above like an 8, I need another option.
Yeah.
And that's what they're for. But if you're taking them because your pain's at a 3, they don't work at an 8.
Well, a big issue with taking them too is you're probably going to be less motivated to move around and stuff. Even though they can help you move around, they can help you get up and down some stairs and stuff like that. But the second that you start to not move, I think, is when people really run into trouble. Was that your situation? Yeah. You were still, you're probably thinking, okay, I got the surgery. This sucks that I had 97 surgeries, but I got to keep pushing forward.
You have to. Well, because the business doesn't run. I still have responsibilities. I can't just sit. Like, hell, if I'm not working and creating and doing, like, I don't have a paycheck. And so it's got to get done. Now, how much can you compartmentalize and get the job done? But at some point during the day, like, that cost is paid.
Yeah.
And so, like, you have to give it attention. And there's definitely dark times that came from it, man. It changed a lot. It changed a lot of my perspective. It changed a lot of what became important to me. And it, for me, really got to this point of like, okay, so if this is how it is at 34, well, then I can't do these things that I've been planning on doing. And that was really the first kind of moment I got of that, of like TikTok. Because you don't know what tomorrow has. Like, I don't have a guarantee that I get back to my hotel today. And I'm okay with that because I'm going to do what I feel I'm supposed to be doing and living now. And now that I've gotten to a point where I can do that, like it's different. Getting out of pain. Like there's a lot of great lessons that came from those years. But you got to get out of the woods to apply them.
And what if we just apply different words, rather than saying I'm depressed, which is like, I hope if somebody is depressed, they can admit it and talk to somebody else about it. But at the same time, for some of us that just kind of feel sad on a given day, why don't we just kind of understand that that's okay? Like
it's totally okay to not be okay.
Like I'm fucking bummed. Like this sucks. I can't move around the way that I once did. But applying the word sadness to it just makes it seem like it's going to pass. Whereas depression, you're like, oh man, I'm not sure how I'm going to get out of this, which is different.
And people are scared to ask for help. I mean, I've gone to therapy and sat and talked to people and have an unbiased party, and I'm lucky to have the greatest network of people and friends to bounce things off.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And there's still rough days, because as much as the people around you and your friends who get it, they don't have the pain. Like it ain't their thing to deal with.
Yeah, so they're there when you want to call upon them, but they're not like randomly there just because you're like, you know what I mean? Like it might check in on you here and there, but for how long? How many years? How after how many surgeries?
Because people still got their own shit.
Right.
Everyone does, and they didn't bail on you. You guys are on a different path.
Right.
And those paths diverge, and so, I mean, I think about that with my old man getting sick with cancer and passing away. Is like, I mean, while my mom was there and we had hospice and all these type of things, that's his fight. Like you don't have someone else in there with you. Yeah. That's your fight. Like, you're the sick one. And like, I can't go and understand it. And so like, pain's a tough one. And like, I'll always have some, like, I don't know what a zero is. Something
I learned from pro wrestling, which I learned a lot of amazing things from, which is kind of weird, but one of them was to check on people that get hurt. Like that's the thing that you all do as a wrestler. Somebody breaks an ankle in a show, and you find out they went to the hospital. We all call, we check in. Maybe it's not the same day. Maybe it's within a 5-day time frame. Or, hey man, how you doing? Checking in. And I always try to do that with you.
Yep.
And then me and Burdick would actually be like quite concerned about you, and he and I would talk about you. Just be like,
why don't we call him?
I think he's on, surgery number 3 or something, man. I don't know, like, how's he doing? Have you seen him lately? Like, is he doing okay? Well, yeah, he's looking pretty good. And spirits seem to, okay, cool. All right, well, let's make sure we give him a call. Yeah. Like, make sure we say what's up.
Yeah, dude, and all of that goes a long way.
Right.
And I always think about that, right? Like, because I'll even do it myself with friends who are in a bad place or whatever they're going through, and you're like, man, I don't want to bother them and bring up the bad thing, right? But as someone who went through it, I never felt hassled by my friend checking in. So, like, take that advice. That, like, you're not hassling them, man. Now, you don't have to check in and need to hear their whole life story. It may just be like, hey, I was just thinking about you, wanted to make sure things are cool, like anything you need. How are you? And most of the time the answer is going to be like, yeah, man, things are okay, I'm fine, blah, blah, blah. But it's enough. Like, those little things, they make a big difference to people. And it's important to give value to that bad time, right? Like, another one that I've thought about through this, and I get it a lot now, is so many people will say a thing to me and they want to compare pain. Of like, well, you're doing all this on this knee, and like I all I had was an ACL. And I'm like, that doesn't make your thing not suck. Like, we're not in competition on pain. Like, there's an unlimited amount of it. And yours isn't lessened because I've had more. In the same way of, like, how many guys do we know that, like, I felt that way for a long time, like friends with Derek Carver, a guy missing a leg at the hip who's had 90 surgeries, blown up and his other leg's in bad shape. Like, fuck am I going to complain about, right? Like, I have a leg. Well, he and I are going back and forth, and he's like, dude, I just want to say how motivating it is seeing you go through what you've gone through and, like, mind space. I'm like, what are you talking about? Right? And he's like, my leg doesn't hurt. It's a hassle, but I'm not in pain. And like that perspective changed a lot. That like it's easy to think like, oh, I don't want to complain about the shit I got to complain about because someone's got it worse. Like it ain't a competition. Like everyone's dealing with shit and everyone's dealing with a max amount of shit that they can probably handle right now.
You think there's a specific reason why you kind of needed to go through those pains? I realize this is not like the knee was hurt from recreational stuff that you chose to do, right?
Of course,
so it's like occupational hazard, I guess you'd say,
Yeah.
right?
There's a risk inherent with the things we want to accomplish.
But at the same time, do you feel like you need to kind of go through that for a specific reason or anything like that? I guess you're still going through it too.
Still going through it, right? Do I think everything happens for a reason? No, I don't.
No, there's shit that sucks in this world that you can't.
Yeah,
really...
look, someone's kid didn't drown while they were at work for a reason.
Right.
Shit happens.
Right.
Kids don't die of malaria
right.
because of a greater plan.
Right.
So, like, no, I don't believe that. But I believe you make the most of the cards that you're dealt. And whether I want to piss and moan about it or not, this is the path I'm on. And I chose that path. I also wouldn't trade a healthy knee for the life experience I got competing for 10 years. And I'm aware of that. And I own that. This is the risk that comes with doing what we do. Like there isn't any safety. It's fuck your elbow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, man, chances are for me, I'll take the life lessons that I've got that have come with it. And it's the life lesson of like, make today count because you don't know how long you got. And if I'm 36, turned 36 April 6th, got knee replacement April 9th, cool birthday. Like if that's the case and I'm halfway through my life to 72, which is relatively realistic for the way I've treated my body plus genetics and family history, like that's 1,860 weeks left to live, right? And as of today of 8 weeks post-surgery, I'm now 1,852 weeks. And that clock's ticking. And whether I'm safe and I play it easy and don't take any risk, or I spend all my time compromising, same number of weeks. Like both of those paths are always going to end in the same place.
You can live the rest of your life as a dick, or you can be nice, or you could help change people's lives, or you got your choices, right?
Right, and everyone's got their choices, and I think everyone gets to make a decision on what risk they're willing to tolerate. And for me, it's life experience is really on the thing I care about. I don't give a shit about a big house and cars or any of this type of stuff. It's life experience, man. It's conversations with amazing people and getting that perspective shift, and then it's putting stuff out there, whether it's the podcast or sharing my perspective on pain or any of this that maybe helps someone else. Dude, that's the ripples that you get to leave in the pond after you leave. And that's your best chance of immortality is the ripples left behind. And like, how do you get to affect the boats left on the water? And so I'm glad I went through what I went through, but I'm glad I'm out of the woods to apply it. And I'm not still stuck there. And it's a tough one because it's coming. I'm going to get older. I'm going to hurt. I'm going to die. I just don't know when. And that's cool too. But I sure as shit ain't going to wake up at 65 and say, I could have done this. Or I wish I would have tried that. Or I always wanted to go to the Grand Canyon. Or I always wish I could have seen this. Like, nah, man, go.
You went to the Grand Canyon with Kelly Starrett and Tim Ferriss.
I did, yeah. That was a weird trip last year. That's 2 weeks.
Have you ever given up on yourself, even if it's just for a day?
No, because it doesn't do any good. Like, I mean, I guess a weird spot is like, with my dad, right? Like, I mean, dad fought cancer and did all that, and at the end, finally committed suicide. I mean, would have most likely starved to death that week, but had the chance and made his decision and hit the off button. I'm aware an off button exists. If I'm going to get to a point and give up, man, it's sitting there. I choose today not to. And it's always a choice. Like, I have the right to make those choices every day. And I don't I know a way out, and I don't like that any better than I like the opportunity of what tomorrow is or could bring. And I'm glad that I'm not in a spot that just thinks every day is worse than the day before. And I really feel that for people that are in that situation, man, that depression's fucking ugly and it's tough. And like having your ability and stuff stolen from you is tough. But one way that I think combats that is make sure that what you're not doing is focusing on comparison. Because, what is it? Thoreau has a quote that's, comparison's a thief of joy. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of truth to that. That it's easy for me to be like, well, fuck, man. A guy that I talk to a lot through the knee stuff's Brandon Lilly. And what's easy for me to look at him and be like, I didn't even have a major injury. Mm-hmm. And he went and ran a fucking marathon on two of the shittiest knees that have existed in the last decade. I'm like, fuck, that's not fair. Well, there's a ton of shit that ain't fair. What the fuck does fair mean? Like you dig your own grave.
Yeah,
and
you also weren't born 7'2".
Right.
Or with the ability to play the piano when you were 5 or whatever.
Exactly. It'd be like, it's as equally stupid as if I was mad at Hapthor for looking the way he does, and I'm not a good strong man. If it wasn't for that high school coach, I would have played in the NFL. Like, no, you wouldn't have.
If I was 6'5".
Yeah, right. Congrats, you're not.
You're not, dickhead.
Well, if you were 5'2". I mean.
Your mom is still around?
Yeah. Yeah, mom's still around, doing well. Has recently started keto, or at least following dietary approach, trying to sort some things out. It becomes harder to ignore when the people around you, because Andy's healthy, and so both of us are, like, she sees the change that we've had in our bodies and how we feel and all this, and like, you don't have to eat that way.
Right.
And for her, it isn't the choice of eating bad. They don't know. The generation doesn't know.
Right.
I mean, look at us growing up. Like, how many times did you go to a restaurant with your parents and probably suck down a 3-liter of soda?
Oh, yeah.
Every time.
And never think about, like, oh, my God, I just put 2,000 calories of sugar in my kid. Like, weird, he has behavioral issues. This doesn't make any sense.
Old people eat like they're in a hospital 24/7.
Right.
Like, they eat like shit.
Yeah.
They eat like sweets, and they eat like salad, and they just eat like really weird, and they never
but as long as old
eat like
people,
a steak or something.
Right,
like
old
that,
people we have to define as like our parents' generation now, right? Because the generation of their parents did not eat that way.
Right.
My grandparents didn't. They lived to be millions of years old. My grandmother died at like 95 and smoked packs of cigarettes every day in her kitchen.
Cigarettes are great.
But the biggest thing for me is if I look at like what she ate, she really never ate processed food. Wow. She's from a generation that cooked and ate food.
Didn't have that bullshit, yeah.
I think the dietary shit we do is way worse than anything else going on.
Yeah, old people eat like wheat thins and these little snacks all day, and then they're not hungry enough to get to, and younger people are guilty of this too. Mm-hmm. But just observations, traveling, and seeing people, choose food, in like a hotel or something like that, and you watch them, and they're passing by like the cottage cheese and the hard-boiled eggs, and it's like, can't we just make a little pit stop there? Can't we just grab a little bit of cheese,
just
so
cover
you get
some of your plate?
Get some protein? They're going for the granola, like they think that that's healthy. That's been
because we've been
marketed
lied to that.
That's been marketed to them, and so it's like, how many grams of protein did these people get in a meal? 10?
Right.
5?
It's like saying that marathon Snicker bars is any different than the actual Snicker bar.
What?
That's all I've eaten for the last week. Feels sweet.
And then also ignoring sleep too, right?
Sleep's a big one.
It just seems like every the previous generation, they're kind of reaching for the medications, whereas before them it was not really a thing, right? It didn't exist.
Even my mom, right? So she came and stayed with me post surgery, and like we're talking about diet stuff, and it's funny to hear what they'll latch on to, and decide that that's the focus. So I'm explaining 3 simple rules of diet, and then explaining some keto things to her. And then she asked me, what supplements am I taking? And I was like, well, I've taken some collagen support stuff. And then apparently that's the only thing that she's missing. And I'm like, no, you're not listening.
I saw them talk about this on Ellen DeGeneres.
You said collagen. I'm like, stop. You don't need any supplements. You need actual food. Like, eat real food. And that's the big one. And like, I don't think it's a conspiracy or any of this shit to make people sick or the healthcare industry. Like, my grandparents' generation that are people that survived like the Great Depression. They didn't have food, and they didn't have the option of McDonald's or any of this until they were adults and already set into the pattern of food that they ate. Now some made the move, but my parents' generation ate that shit like from the time that they got free to start making their own food decisions. That they ate trash. And then my generation, we were just given trash from jump because it's available.
Yeah.
We just didn't know any better. Like, I just don't think we honestly knew. And so it was like, okay, cool. So we'll do less fat. Like, if you want people to be less fat, let's eat less fat. That makes sense. Like, that adds up. Don't want fat? Have less fat. Perfect. Meanwhile, let's get rid of anything in there that has any nutritional value and just put just filler of shit. And of course your gut health dies, and of course your body can't process it, and like all these things. Whereas like you just have to be smarter with it. Like there's only 2 fat things on this entire planet. It's people and animals that we feed. That's it. They're the only thing that's fat on this entire
You're never like, oh my God, look how fat that zebra is.
It's only shit we feed, right? Otherwise they die. Like that's how it works. And like you got to take some stock in that like it's your choice and the food's there.
Just find a way to get some kind of control.
Dude,
Whatever
single
method,
ingredient.
Whatever method you got.
Single ingredient's pretty solid, because like eat a cashew. Have some macadamia nuts. Have like a pistachio. I don't even care what nut it is, but don't eat the honey roasted, chocolate covered almonds.
Come on, bro!
Those are the
You just
best.
ruined my whole
So
life.
good.
Chocolate covered fire ants, right? That's what you guys
What's your
said?
favorite fat snack you miss?
Oh, I love a lot of stuff. That's my problem, I think.
Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Ew.
I love Taco
Yeah.
Bell.
You know what? I haven't been to Taco
Never
Bell
had
in a long time.
I've been craving Taco Bell lately
Dude,
too.
it's so
It's
good, dude.
killing me.
You're trying to put on size. Go. Treat
But
yourself.
I don't want to get gross size though.
Whatever,
In and out.
man. You got to get size first. We'll
I
figure
guess
out how
I'm-
to shave that monster down
Yeah.
once we get there.
I guess I'm pretty boring. I like pizza and ice cream and
Yeah,
stuff like
which is
that.
also
All
good.
the regulars. But I love peanut butter cups. I'm a sucker for that.
During your cuts, did you do any like the ice cream replacements of like Halo Top or
No. Like when it was time to cheat, I was allowed to cheat and was
had
able
real
to.
ice cream?
Yeah, I was able to get after it a couple times, which was nice. Oh my
no.
God, is that me?
Oh no, manatees are the best, dude.
But you were saying like things that are fat are just us and our pets basically.
Right.
Well, except this guy.
Well, but manatees aren't
Yeah.
fat, right? Like it's the same thing as calling a hippo fat.
Yeah.
Like that's what they're built to do because they need protection and
That's their
buoyancy.
performance
and,
right there.
They're just
Nah,
big
that
boned.
guy's fat, man. That guy's pretty fat. He's so fat he can't even get his arms down to his
Oh,
sides.
no. Think about the bench stroke.
He's
though.
got
he's,
the,
he's
oh,
easily
he's
going to
got a
bench
great
600.
bench. Yeah,
He's got
easily.
the fat power lifter bent elbow thing
Oh
going on.
god, where they're just constantly stuck.
Yeah, they're just stuck in this fat state.
How much do you miss the glory days of powerlifting?
Oh my God. Well, I watched West Side versus the World, and it brought me back.
It
was
does,
pretty
right?
Cool. Did you get to see
Oh
it?
yeah.
I loved it. I thought they did a great job.
I
There's-
thought they did a good job too.
It's a complicated story to try to tackle anything at West Side and Louis Simmons and the whole thing, and they did the absolute best job that I think you could possibly imagine, and I thought it was great.
I think there's a couple things to look at. That I look at strength, right? Like there's a couple really important pieces, and for me it was like realizing that some places have a gravity that you can't put your finger on, and like whether that's the Husafell Stone in Iceland, or West Side, or another one to me was Dr. Douglas Edmonds' house in Scotland. One of the places I stayed whenever I was over there. Dougie Edmonds like helped get World's Strongest Man going. His son Gregor makes all the implements for World's Strongest Man. And so like I was in his living room one day and there was a contest that I happened to be there for, but like in the course of that afternoon, like Zadrunas came in and picked up some things and left. And like Kaz has lived at that house and John Paul Sigmarsson lived at that house for a period of time. And then like Mark Felix came in and Benedict Magnuson came in and like these people came in and left. And it was just one of these things that like whether it's his house or it's West Side or it's the Husafell Stone, there's a couple spots on earth that like if you stay there long enough, the strongest people come to you. Like you don't have to chase them.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you want to sit long enough at the Husafell Stone, the strongest humans on the planet will eventually show up. And that's weird. Like, it's a fucking rock. It doesn't care.
Right.
It doesn't have a single feeling about it.
No, and it's because they're just so driven by that one thing. They literally want to get stronger. They want to figure out a way, how do we get stronger? I do think there was a couple things absent of the movie. Like, obviously these guys are on performance enhancing drugs, but I just thought it should have been something that was at least grazed over, somewhere in it. They did talk.
Yeah, right.
They did talk about like Matt Dimmel, and I realize that's not the direction of the movie, and maybe some of these guys were kind of fearful that something would happen or whatever, but I just thought it should have just been mentioned. Like, they could, even just saying that they compete in non-tested federations, like they choose to not be tested, that would at least give you an idea of like,
yeah,
that was kind of one thing. And another thing I thought they missed out on, which I think is really important, is that myself and Dave Tate and Matt Wenning and some other guys ended up going on to be very successful. And it's because we were stamped by Louis Simmons, or we were stamped by Westside Barbell.
Right.
And I think that that's something that...
How'd you get out of there without a Westside tattoo?
Yeah, I know, right? I think that's... I think it's kind of cool. Like, it's different, right? It's Louis is a mentor. And he's also a madman in a lot of ways, and he's going to break a lot of people. But some people that can kind of hang in there, and
yeah, but you don't want a mentor that's balanced and lives comfortably in the right headspace.
It's not going to change. Not going to change your life.
No, you need to get close enough to that fucking fire to at least see it.
Right.
Right. And then people like Louis, like, people don't get it, man. Like, he doesn't give a fuck.
Right.
Like, none of this shit, like the business or any of those type of things, don't matter to him at fucking all. It is that gym. Bury me in it.
Right.
And most people don't have that.
And that's something that's not really mentioned in there at all, which I don't know how they would mention it, but like how successful of a businessman he is.
I don't know if anyone knows.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, yeah. I think, first of all, he lives in Columbus, Ohio, which is just different, right? But he's very, very well off. You know?
He's very comfortable.
Yeah, and which I think is great, because it's
but it's
the American dream,
right? Like, his wealth is a side effect of doing the thing that he loves and he's passionate about, and only giving a shit about that passion. Like, I mean, that gym's moved and it's had rough fucking stretches, and then look, I mean, I bet CrossFit saved Westside.
Yeah,
more people want to get stronger. I mean, what amount of equipment has Louis moved through Rogue?
Oh yeah. Huge amount.
Stuff like this, right? Like, that's the marketing power. Why did that movie get made? Why is the other stuff that's got made? Like, barbells are in more people's hands today because of CrossFit.
Yeah.
And, I mean, sure as shit ain't because of fat dudes in bench shirts.
No, CrossFit went to Louis. CrossFit went to Louis Simmons, and he ran their powerlifting certification courses. It's huge.
Yeah. It's huge.
It's massive.
And, dude, you need unbalanced people like that to drive for a while, to see, to push limits, to see what humans are capable of. And I mean, that's another thing too, whether we're going to talk about the drugs or any of those type of shit, right? Like powerlifting, CrossFit, whatever sports it is, all of these things can be healthy if you want to participate in them. Weight training is healthy if you want to participate. Build muscle, helps your metabolism, can get you stronger, supports your skeleton. If you want to see the absolute strongest that you can become as a human, this isn't healthy anymore. We've waved bye-bye to a thing. We are on a burn. Now, how long you get to burn before you get out safely, I don't know. But it's on a burn. Like, I had a conversation on my podcast with Steffi Cohen, and she was talking about the program that she ran to get her deadlift. And she was like, look, it's brutal and this and that. And I think Dan Green wrote it. And she was like, it was really, really tough. And that when I finished it, like, it took me 6 or 7 months to get my back to chill out again, to start training heavy again. And she was like, so, that program. And I was like, well, it worked. And she was like, well, I'm like, you wanted to be the strongest woman that's ever existed, and the program worked. There are consequences, but a program like that, or pushing hard, or any of those type of things, and we've all been in that moment that, like, dude, you got to treat it like chemotherapy. That this will work as long as you can survive long enough to let it work. But on a long enough timeline, it wins and you die. Get out before then. And that's how it's got to be treated, whether it's the insanity of business or whatever it is. Like and you get stretches of like, I can go. Okay, breathe. But eventually you'll lose.
Are you frustrated at all that you got kind of shoved out because of the knee injury?
I don't know, man. That's a weird what if, right? Like, I would have loved to keep throwing because...
You were like in the middle of it, kind of, right?
Yeah, last time I competed, I took second in the world.
Yeah.
And then never competed again.
And now still with the knee issue.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I got done to fix it. Like, it was getting worse. And so when I got out in 2016, the plan was take the year off, recover, and then get back to throwing.
Is there something in your head about possibly being able to compete?
Fuck no. I was
even just masters or for fun or something or
it's not just for fun. What the fuck do you mean? What's just for fun? Like,
you don't think you could do that?
No. I was too good at it for it to be just for fun. I know what the training requires. I know the cost. For me to be as good and committed to it as I was, I know the other things in my life that'll suffer. And I'm not willing to do that anymore. And if that's the case, well, then own that you're not willing to do it. And I'm not. And
I'm in the same spot. I remember watching videos of you, and something that always stuck out was, you would post up like your warm up or whatever, and your these different stretch progressions you'd go through and stuff. And I was like, he just did like, I don't know, 15 or 20 different like stretches. He did all this warming up. He did all this stuff, and you're following this program very specifically. And then I'd see, the next video you'd be out in a field throwing, and you got like specific shoes on with fucking spikes on, and like I'm just thinking in my head, this takes a tremendous amount of work. Here he is in his garage. That's cool. Like a lot of people can go in their garage and train, the people that have weights. But then to like load up your car with stuff and to go and put these boots on and do all these different things and
throw in a field by yourself.
And completely. Yeah. Always by yourself.
Always by myself.
In the garage, you're by yourself.
By myself.
Yeah.
And I threw by myself for 10 years.
And I was just thinking to myself, I'm like, I can't do that. Like I can't. Like I
can't do it anymore.
That's not for me. Like I admire it. I think it's awesome. I'm like, shit, man. This guy is driven. This guy's going to be able to figure out anything he wants.
There's a lot that comes from that you learn from that alone time. And for me, one of those lessons that I learned from it was, I don't need anyone else to give a shit about this. I care. I'm going to do this because I care. And like, I'm the guys that I competed with, right? Like, I'm 6 foot and was 285 at my best throwing weight. And the guys I competed against they look like my brother. They're 6'5" and 310. The average size of the Highland Games Pro.
Have we ever figured that out?
There's got to be some weird milkman or some shit that was coming around.
Brother looks like he could have played in the NFL.
Did play. Shit.
Fuck, he did play in the NFL.
He's also still throwing and not hurt. Like a different bag of genetics, right? Like different skeleton, different ability.
You should have kicked him off. Maybe you can't kick him off the team. It's too big.
Is he doing as well as you were?
No. But I mean, he did pro strongman for a while. Played in the NFL.
He's big and jacked, though.
Yep.
Okay.
That's the point.
And moderately successful. Still Olympic lifting.
Yeah.
And still trains hard and still doing Highland Games. He's 40, and hasn't had any significant injuries. Oh man, that was.
It's got to be addressed.
Oh no.
Yeah, Matt was trying to help.
Like you can actually hear me in the video go, "Oh no!" like I realize I'm in trouble.
Matt was trying to make the slingshot go viral, and this was his version of how to do it. It's on his Instagram.
I'm sad that this is the most popular thing I've ever posted.
That's awesome. How many views does this thing
3
have?
look good? 32,000. Oh no.
Oh, whoops.
Wait.
The old triceps gave out. Okay, yeah, don't have a collar on the side so you can throw the bar off.
I've got elbow sleeves on. I have a slingshot on. I got a belt. I'm done up like the goddamn Michelin man.
Oh, there we go. Like that.
Oh, it gets worse.
Oh.
Watch my stupid legs flail around.
You're trying to do like
no. Oh no.
Oh god.
Oh no.
Matt, how'd you make up that weighted side plank?
Oh god.
You're such a fat kid right there.
That was getting ready for the classic. It was like one of the last workouts I had before coming.
It looked like a polished workout to make you
Dialed
feel really.
in.
Put that last little finishing touch on your training.
Yeah.
Turtle on
Don't
its
put
back.
don't put collars on your bench. Be
Tell us
smart.
about HVIII. I know we've talked.
Brand, yeah.
I know we've talked a lot about it in the past, but it's just been a while since we've had you on the show.
Yeah.
Main thing I want to know to start out is how did you like? And we have talked about this on the podcast as well. But what was the, how did you make the decision to like dive all in? I know with your you had a previous job for a while, and you were contemplating and going back and forth, and
lost the job and said, "We're gonna give it hell."
Yeah, and so tell us about like kind of the progression of that, and maybe some advice to someone that has a job, because we hear people all the time, you got to follow your passion, and it's like, hold on, we need to slow down a little bit, because passion is not going to pay the rent or pay the mortgage or anything. So
I mean, also, just because you're passionate about a thing and you're willing to work hard does not mean you get to be successful at it. Like, there are some other intangibles that just, like, you also have to want to make a thing people want, right? And so, I had the opportunity. I had developed a message over a couple years, and enough people were interested in it through the training manuals I wrote for the Highland Games, and kind of talked about the mentality I had was the hate. And that was really the thing that got me in the field by myself and training by myself, was because I was a little undersized, and I did have, I don't have the genetics of some of the guys I competed against. And so, but it's not something to be pissy about. Like, I can't do anything about it. I may as well be mad the sky's blue.
And then maybe you just make a decision like, okay, like I'm undersized, but I'm not going to let other people win because I'm not prepared.
Right. Being outworked is a fucking choice. And then, like, being outworked is one thing. And the other thing that you can polish as an athlete that I don't think enough people do is be a competitor. And for me, like, that's the other part. Like, it's a spread hate and it's always party. And the always party bit, man, was like, I mean, the big one it comes down to was, I remember, like, World Championship 2014. I'm in Scotland. My main competition, the guy I'm throwing with, and, like, we always went back and forth on Worlds. Like, we are a half point away from each other going into the last event. It's a heavyweight for distance, which is a 56-pound you throw as far as you can. And, like, this was a good event for me. It's a good event for him. And by this point, like, there's 12 people competing, but with a half-point difference, I just got to beat him. And I win. And I remember feeling it and, like, getting ready for that event. And, like, all I could think in my head was, like, you haven't worked hard enough. Like, for him, like, you haven't out-trained me. You'll bleed to beat me today. See if you got it. Because I'm going to fucking throw far. Now, if you can out-throw what I'm going to throw, which is far, then you've earned it. But I'm going to perform. And that's the part that I mean is like a competitor, right? That, like, whether that or, like, getting a chance to turn it on at the Classic. You know what I mean? I went into that with a bench PR of, like, 412 and benched 440. Like, I'm a gamer. Like, now's the time to perform. I am confident in that environment. I've done it enough. I spent 10 years doing 20 plus competitions a year. And so, like, I'm real good at being able to flip that switch and have that confidence in myself of, like, when it's time to do a thing, I will perform and I'll get it done, because I do. And I don't back down, and I don't let the anxiety and butterflies take over. Like, those things are fire, man.
You also have a lot of experience, like in your work, like when you were doing sales, which is like you're trying to sell something to somebody who probably doesn't want it,
or even want to see you.
Yeah, they don't want it. Yeah, you're coming back around again this year
Right.
to see if, and they already know they don't want to, and they already got their budget set, and you got to figure out, I mean, all those things, they play into all this. And I think it's a huge factor for people to figure out ways to kind of fight through some of these things, fight through some of that anxiety, lean into it.
Well, I think so people are failure avoidant. That it, like, well, I mean, how many people do you hear that ask that question of, like, well, I don't want to do a meet until I can hit these numbers, or, like, what numbers do you think I need? Like, motherfucker, I think you need to compete. Because if you don't know how this works and how I'm 3 out, or what the feeling is, and what seeing other people move around and like being in that environment, you're not going to be okay if you got the numbers in training. It isn't the same. So you got to build that repetition too, as being a competitor. Know what it's like that morning when your guts are a little weird, and not panic about it. It's like, well, it's cool. I shit 3 times this morning. That means I'm probably ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, that's a good sign. You know, and then being used to that, or like, okay, I know my shoulder's a little stiff, but I know that if I spend a little bit more time doing that this morning before the adrenaline kicks in, we're fine. And that comes with that experience. Like, you've got to be experienced and get those 10,000 hours as a competitor too, to have that confidence. Because, man, when it's good and when you know that you can perform, there is no better feeling than on game day when things line up and all you have to think about is just pour the fucking coals to it and step on the gas pedal. There's nothing better than when it's all working. And it's just like, we're untouchable today. Let's go. But that only comes from having that time under the bar and having that time performing when it counts. And so, I mean, whether that is cold calling people for a bunch of years as an outside sales rep, like, give a shit about hearing no. Fucking cares, move on. Like, cool. I had the exact same thing going for me before I heard no as I did hearing no. But I got to get so many no's to get to a yes. And that it's a numbers game.
Yeah.
And so, man, failure's a better teacher than success is.
I think Sarah Blakely, who I saw recently at a speaking engagement, she is the woman that owns Spanx. And, like, you know, it's cool to see all these speakers get up at the summit that I went to. And, you know, she just knocked the shit out of all of them just because of, like, you know, what Spanx is and what it got to and stuff like that. But it was amazing that her upbringing, she said that her dad he'd go around the table every week and he'd say, okay, what'd you fail at this week, Sarah? And if she didn't have anything, he'd be mad. He'd be like, no, every week we got to find something, you know, to fit. And then he would make a joke of it. So, like, the kids would be like, well, you know, they called somebody up, you know, they asked somebody in the class if they wanted to be called up to draw a picture of a tree, and I really screwed it up and it was ugly. And the dad would be like, oh, that's great. That's okay, cool. You know, and then they'd go to the next kid and whatever it was, trying volleyball or whatever.
Well, I mean, this slingshot stuff's never going to work.
It's still not working.
No, it's terrible idea.
I can't figure out a way to get it to go.
You know, it just amazes me how many people
use a sales rep.
Perfect. You mean travel around to gyms?
With a bum leg.
I'd like to talk to you about the Power Slingshot. You show up dressed like a Mormon. This is brilliant.
Yeah, you already got it down.
I get a little name tag that says Elder Matt.
Pull it out of a briefcase with the web on it.
Oh, man. I like this a lot.
Mm-hmm.
This is brilliant. I'm into it.
Where's that, like, competitive fire go now, though?
Work. You know, like, whether that's the podcast, right? Like, for me, like, I still get that kind of charge pre-podcasting because there's that moment of, like, fuck, man, what are we going to talk about?
What you were talking about right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that feeling of, like, okay. And I'm nervous going in, but, I mean, I've done 80 episodes now, and it's never failed, but I'm still nervous going in, right? Like, at what point do I just accept it? Like, this is probably going to go okay. Like,
yeah.
But I think it's good for you to have that feeling, to have that little bit of that anxiety, the butterflies. Like, that's why I do it.
And you still get that with, like, the other things that you're doing currently.
Yeah, like whether it's a big release that we're doing for HVIII or something like that, or business-wise, or making decisions, or deciding to go do a bench-only meet. Like, it's just the ability to flip that switch and perform when I say fucking perform, right? To tell the body that, like, backseat today. We're driving, and we're going to perform because we said so. And that's podcast because you're tired, right? Like, you know, I have one of those I've been doing seminars up in Canada for this company, Good Life Fitness. They have a bunch of gyms and stuff like that. And so I'm teaching their trainers. And so we talk about submaximal training. And so I went and did one, and flight got screwed up. I was supposed to get in at like 9:30 the night before, and the seminar starts at 11. I ended up, because of flights and weather, I got in at like 5 a.m. and then hour and a half ride. Like, I got to my hotel at 7 a.m.
Yeah.
Without any sleep, and was at a seminar to teach at 11. So I got up at 9 and went to the gym and did an hour of training to you know, get that reset. And then I did the 5 hours of seminar and talked. And at the very end of it, I was like, you know, I didn't sleep last night, blah, 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 blah. I was like, but we're going to fucking perform today because this is what we do.
Yeah.
This is the job. And no one gives a shit about your excuses, man. Everyone's got them. And so, like, I get to pour that kind of fire into that. And I'm trying to figure out, how do you point that fire on other people so they feel it? and they feel that bit of like, fuck, man, we can do more. It's ripples in the pond now. It's trying to make that effect, and it's, you know, the business and trying to figure out what bits and pieces and figuring out that puzzle, you know, what grows it, because like I'm running a different business than say Mark's running. You know, I don't want a home base to build a team out of, because I want to travel constantly and go and do. And so I've got people, and then I've got people that are all remote, whether that's my marketing people or any of these, but I don't see them. I mean, most of the people that work for me, I've never met in person.
Wow.
And so, I mean, look, there's cost that comes with that too, right? Like advantages and disadvantages.
Yeah, it sounds easy. There's no free lunch. You
No,
know, there's no easy money out there,
dude.
no matter how you
There's
do it.
no easy money out there. And then it's now I'm starting to pivot, and there's been a handful of companies that have reached out that want to work with me because, well, I've got a big network of people, and I'm not full of shit, and I can create content. And so I'm back doing outside sales again, essentially, which is cool. This is a skill I have. I'm at a point where I'm not arguing that I'm a salesman. I know that this is what.
And originally, when you kind of started this, you probably thought, "Oh, this is gonna be cool. I'm gonna work for myself someday." And like, you're just totally not.
Well, right. I did that, you know, when I had the bike shop, you know, years and years ago, and that failed.
Right.
And then I was like, I will not work for me again. Like, sure enough, here we are.
It's weird though, because like I think the perception is like, I'm gonna do this thing, I'm gonna work for myself, but there's really not such a thing. You know,
No.
it's just
No, you're just part of a team.
yeah,
Right.
you're always part of something.
The best thing that you
Always
can do,
selling to somebody.
Yeah, always. And the big part of like you deciding that it's your name on the front of it, where that really comes into play is when someone has a problem with what you do, is you own it. Whether that's a fuck up with customer service, a bad product, or we designed a thing and then got in 200 of them or 1,000 of them and they're shit. I eat that. That's not this other guy's fault. I'm not going to tell my customers like, well, the people that we had made it didn't do a great job. No, it's my fucking fault. And that's where you get to be as the owner. You're that guy that takes that hit instead of me saying, well, the lady who's sewing tags on that I, pay that it's her fault. Like, why would I throw her under the bus, man? That's my name on it. Like, own it and apologize and don't lie to people. Make it right. How can we fix this? Some people just want to be pissed, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But I mean, for the most part, like even just reaching out and being a human, people are into it. It's amazing what that gives them, because they think because of popularity or whatever else that you're not really a person, and it's easy that you'll never see this comment, so I'll just leave it. Like, fuck, man. You got to do it all, and I love getting to do what I do for a living now. I absolutely love it, and I want to continue to do it as long as I can. But I also don't have a problem if this fails. Like, I'll get a job. I can work.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hard work's not a problem, which is great because most of the people in my generation are fucking terrible at it.
Makes it easy to look good.
This is great. If I got to compete with you assholes for work the rest of my life, this is good. I never had participation trophies, man. I don't mind failing. Yeah. I don't need a pat on the back.
You want to get more into like public speaking type stuff, you think?
I like it. Yeah, I do. And especially when you hear someone do it who's good at it. Like a buddy of mine, Derek Woodsky, is one of my favorite guys to listen to talk, and he's so fucking good at it. And then, hear him say like, well, I started looking at public speaking stuff when I was 10. I'm like, fuck, of course you did. Like, it isn't just an innate gift. He's like, well, I've got a speech impediment and blah, 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 blah. And I've learned how to use alliteration and things to get around it and not say words that trigger it. And so it's always fascinating to see people's journey. And man, chances are, if they're on that stage and you're there listening to them, they've had it. Like, they didn't get there free either. Mm-hmm. It's always been a fight. It's those type of things, and realizing like there isn't one day of business that makes your business. There can be a day of business that breaks it. You can fuck everything up all in one day, but you can't build it all at once. And so it's just got to be this steady hill climb. And there's always going to be a weird peak, but understand that spike that happens today isn't sustainable, and figure out how to hold on, because when it slows back down, we still got to keep climbing. And like that just comes with the experience too of, I mean, do you have a moment in any of this that you would say like, that was the day it changed?
No.
Right. Whereas because I show up once a year or, a few times a year and I'm just like, Jesus Christ, dude, what's happened since last time I was here? And you're like, oh, well, I guess, because you're too close to it.
Yeah. I guess it just added up eventually.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like we just kept reinvesting in us.
Right. And you also on that point for people that are trying to like quote unquote make it, you can be in search of it, by just working hard. But if you're really trying to look for it, you're actually never going to find it.
Well,
it's a weird thing to say out loud, but you're not gonna find that one big boom.
No.
And you're better off just not even looking for it.
No. And anything that we've ever seen that way, right? Like whether that's a musical artist that has a thing go weird and viral, well then cool, you're a person that never got heard from again. And I've never wanted that. I've always wanted sustainability. And for me, that's curbed a lot of the content that I want to create. Like I didn't want to do any of the trendy videos or any of this that could have maybe sparked, and maybe that would have changed things, maybe not. I mean, I also wasn't sitting on a ton of viral ideas I tried not to do. So, there's talent in that. Look at something like what Bradley Martin's done. Like there's a ton of talent in being able to do what he's done. Now, I'm not that guy's target demographic. He's not trying to sell a bunch of shit to 36-year-old guy. And so, like, realize that just because it isn't your cup of tea doesn't mean it's not valuable. And you got to be willing to risk it, and you got to be willing to listen to the failure. Like that's a big part of it. You just keep making progress, right? Cuz I mean, you can just quit and stop and that'll be the end of it. That's a fail, that's a stop. But you gotta just keep moving forward, and whether that's the rehab or any of that, like what's the other option? I'm gonna sit on the fucking couch and quit? I'd be bored to tears.
How was this? Was it Summer Smash? That's what
Summer Strong.
Summer Strong.
Yeah,
with,
Summer Strong.
Sornex.
Sornex, man, that is of the events that I attend every year. It's in the top 2, and it's so good and it's so remotivating. And the one that makes Summer Strong different than a lot of stuff, like whether it's the Arnold or any of these things, like the speakers at Summer Strong or the guest attending, like this is a professional strength and conditioning thing. These are NFL, NCAA coaches. These are professional, strength and conditioning coaches. And no one there gives a shit about your following. That is not the place.
Well, and a lot of these guys don't have hardly any following. They don't care about it, yeah. But they're insanely knowledgeable.
Insanely knowledgeable, right? Because they've carved out their own niche and they don't have to play that game or don't want to. Because like a guy like Cal Dietz, right? Like he's incredibly intelligent and strength coach from Minnesota, a wildly talented guy with his training system like triphasic, and then the RPR stuff that he does with tissue work that, kind of Poliquin did a lot of. Cal doesn't run his Instagram. He doesn't give a fuck because he's making athletes better that he actually gets to put a hand on. And he's doing just fine. Right? And so guys like that, like it's a different thing. And so going to that type of event and feeling part of it. And for me, it's still a really big deal to me to feel respected by that crowd of coaches as an athlete and someone putting out content and not being a clown. Like I don't want to be looked at that way. And even if that meant my brand makes more money, that's okay. I'm doing fine. I'm not willing to pay that cost. And so everyone's got their own deal of success, but I don't get to bitch that the following's not bigger if I don't want to play the game. And there's a bit of the game that you got to play if that's the goal. But if following isn't translating to more dollars and better target demographic, then like I don't want a bunch of trolls because they showed up for my 10,000 calorie challenge video and now 5 videos past that are confused, like what the fuck is this guy doing? Like why is he talking about rehabbing his knee all the time. Like, I'd rather have people who give a shit. You know.
Are you still vlogging? You still filming a lot of these things? Or
Yeah, I still travel and film quite a bit, and it's slower than it was. And part of that just, I switched to giving more of a shit about the podcast, because the vlog got weird, man. Because my group of friends got weird, and so, like, we've known each other a long time, and like, it's one thing that if I'm gonna go and travel and be around someone who also does that for a living. You know, Meg or any of these other people I'm friends with, or Bart and Gio, like, they're not weirded out by a camera. But becoming friends with, like, Kyle Kingsbury and Aubrey and those guys that on it, like, I'm not bringing a camera into Aubrey's house around those people. While I know this would be content people want to see, well, then I'm a fucking outsider and I'm not invited. I want to be there. So that's my time. You know, or... You know, I didn't post anything of 2 weeks of that Grand Canyon trip with Tim Ferriss. I'd rather Tim be a friend than me exploit him for a bunch of fucking strangers that I don't know to be stoked that I was near him.
Well, it's also like just respectful. I mean, you know, Aubrey Marcus, Kyle Kingsbury, Tim Ferriss, some of these people, they might be like, wait, what are you filming for?
Right.
You know, like they're
like, man, this isn't why I came on this trip.
They're not. You might be kind of like ruining their trip.
Exactly. And be aware of that, you know. And so for me, it got to a point where the vlog, I felt a bit disingenuous not sharing my life, because my life was doing weird things, but I didn't feel so connected that, like, I have to share this. Like, it wasn't worth the payoff. Like, I'd rather the long term of, like, build relationships with people I really like, that are interesting. You know, I'd rather be able to see those people when I come to town and be treated as a friend, and not, okay, cool, he's gonna be here, we gotta film, and then fucking turn on. Like, yeah. I don't want it to have to be on because I'm around. Like, I'm okay with us cooking some food and sitting on the couch. It's because I want the relationship.
It's easier and more fun.
Yeah. Yeah, like, the time and a place to work. And then figuring out the separation of those two helps. You know, like, I tell people all the time, like, I've known you a really long time. And it took a while for me to understand, like, the difference in Mark being on for work and then the guy that I've known a long time sitting on the couch shooting the shit.
Right.
And so I was like, okay, this is what we got.
Right.
And realized that my on going to lunch with customers for the petrochemical job is not the same dude that's sitting here talking about this, right? And this isn't the same guy that's sitting at my desk editing.
Right.
Like, everyone's got different gears to put in. And so it just felt a little weird to keep vlogging, but choosing not to share stuff, but then talk about, like, well, I did blah, blah, blah. I'm like, well, you didn't show any of it.
Right.
Like, I'd just rather not mention it.
Yeah, it's not as exciting and stuff. No, I know what you mean. I mean, you don't want to film every aspect of your life and have, you know, so much out there all the time. Right. I mean, sometimes you just don't even want to film or be filmed.
Yeah, you just want to be present.
Yeah, you just want to be doing your thing.
There's also nothing worse than spending today editing yesterday. Woof. Takes a toll.
Yeah. Why don't you, like, hire someone for that stuff? Or is there just you want your style to be
I'm so on the road, right? So then I've got to, like, then it becomes weird too, right? Like, if some of these situations I'm in, like, I don't want to bring a third on the Grand Canyon for 2 weeks with me to film. I don't want to bring this third party who isn't friends with the guys that I'm hanging out to bring a camera. Also, maybe that's different if I've got 10 million subscribers in the group, but I'm not that dude, right? Look, if Tarantino wants to show up for lunch and bring a camera guy, like, no one's going to piss and moan about it. But meanwhile, I show up, I'm a dick.
8 weeks past your surgery.
Yeah, total knee, 8 weeks, man.
You got a new knee.
Got a whole new knee.
And is there any pain?
Not in the joint. I still have some surgical pain. Like, it's stiff. And so I'm still working on range of motion, and my hip's a little jacked from walking around on a limp for a couple years, and I've only got one good butt cheek.
Using any, like, anything to help with the pain as far as supplements go? Mind Bullet, CBD,
Mind Bullet?
CBD oil,
Any of those things?
anything like that?
Yeah, Mind Bullet, Kratom have been good. I've been using Kratom. Chris put me in touch with that a long time ago, and it's been a really great change. I knew a long time ago that opiates are a thing I have to stay away from. Now, with that said, like, they serve a purpose. Like I said, if your pain threshold hits that 8, like, you need a thing, and that's why they exist. But the medical industry doesn't operate with like, but I'm always in a 2. They're like, well, ibuprofen. I'm like, cool, kill my liver? Like, that's the option? Like, destroy my insides and ruin my gut health and do all these other type of things. Whereas, CBD, whether I really, really like smoking CBD. So a couple companies like Blue Ridge Hemp and Cured Nutrition both make a bunch of great CBD options. So I like smoking it. The tinctures are great too, just really easy. And then topically, it's been really great. So I'll actually use a CBD oil or rub and then do like fascial and scraping and stuff over the injury. And I get a lot of relief from that. And then marijuana's been really big for me, especially with down regulation, being able to sleep, those type of things. And then turning off the insanity that's on in my head constantly of go and do and this and I need the hamster to get off the wheel for a bit.
You mess around with any like mushrooms or anything like that?
I have.
Mindsets wise or just for whatever reasons?
Yeah. I've
what do those things do for you?
I like it a lot. I think I'd recommend it, and I think if people are ready for that journey. The big one for that one that most people aren't ready for is that if you're going to go down that route of psilocybin, is you're handing the keys over. You don't get to unring that bell once you've decided to start. You don't get to get out. You're on the ride. And just listen. And there's place, set and setting is the big one. So I've had good trips and I've had bad trips. Good trips, like easy one, like, man, go for a hike. Things are great. You're outside and like there's so much input that the mushrooms get to deal with. And so like, it's like the vibrance has just been turned up, like on what you're seeing. So everything's just better. And I end up walking around and like breathe really heavy and I just like giggle like some stupid thought will kick in and like plants get a little geometric and stuff like that. But then I've also took some getting ready to go on a hike, a pretty big dose. And the hike we were on was really bad. Like it was this paved 1/4 mile thing instead of the 5 or 6 mile thing that I'd planned. And so like I was back at my truck like when things got back into me. And so Ashley drove at the time and like we'd ended up going to like this brewery and we were going to hang out there. And like, I remember like, I'm going to need a minute in the car to get my shit together before we go into this place. And so like finally I felt like I had it together and I walk in and it is just, oh man, worst environment imaginable. Just super loud. There's a shit ton of people. There's a bunch of kids.
Why is it so loud? You're like, they're not even playing any music.
I remember like just walking in and I was like, whew, like looking around, I see the group that I'm with and like got over to the table and sat down, just basically got in the corner and like sunglasses, hat down and in a bad place. Like I am very anxious and I'm miserable being there. And like, I see some kid playing skee ball and like, he's probably 10. And like at some point, like he's playing skee ball, and then I see him like take it and like look around, like no one's paying attention. So he starts overhanding him in there. So at this point, like I'm just drilling eyes through him. Like I see that you're fucking being a piece of shit. And like I know that you're being like, I'm ready to fight this 10-year-old. Fight his dad, like, because you're not parenting. Like they've taken a weird turn. And so like I'm still not vocalizing anything to anyone. And so I kept just picturing this anxiety that I had as a snake eating its own tail. And so as long as I wasn't going to give it something else to feed on, it'll eventually eat itself and die. So just shut the fuck up. Not every environment's supposed to be good for you. And that's what I got out of it. Like today's lesson was things aren't always great. Shut the fuck up sometimes. Like don't ruin the other 7 people you're with's good time because you chose to do a thing that made you feel weird.
Yeah, you chose to be angry.
Yeah, you chose, and this was the lesson today, right? So listen to the medicine. I think they're great. Also, that's one of the few times I can say that during the last couple of years that I am completely pain free. Is like if I'm microdosing or something like that, nothing hurts.
Why does everybody say microdosing as opposed to
Heroic dose.
what's that?
So a heroic dose with mushrooms, and forgive anyone if I'm not the smartest on this, with psilocybin would be something like around or over 5 grams. And that's considered like a big dose. Like, don't make plans. Be in a good place. Now, microdose would be like a half a gram. It's enough to know something's in your system. And it's just enough of a perspective shift in your head that you just see things a little different.
Is it anything like kratom?
No, even big dose of kratom doesn't go the same
Different.
way. Yeah. I get kratom to me at a big dose can feel more like an edible marijuana.
I thought you were going to say edible panties.
Ugh, can't be good. Who's the last person you'd want to eat some off of?
Yeah, I
They're
know.
not too bad.
That's what next competition in the gym someone loses.
I think all panties are edible, just for the record.
If you believe.
Yeah.
If you try hard
I can do it.
Ugh, they're going to come out bad.
It's going to be bad.
But I recommend trying stuff, right? That like I wouldn't give an opinion on those things without knowing about it, and I'm definitely interested. And especially friends I've made that I'd say dabble more in that realm, right? Like I look at those people and I think, well, fuck, man, they're not bitter and they're not angry. And they definitely handle problems a different way than I'm used to handling problems. I think I spent a lot of time similar to what I grew up with, of like immediate response to stress in a situation is anger and no. And then I'll backtrack and figure it out. Whereas now that's not the thing. I don't harbor a lot of animosity and I don't feel scarcity about a lot of things, whether that's pain or love or fear or any of those things. Like those are all things that like we all have our own shit to deal with, and like you don't know everyone's path and you don't know what they got to deal with today before they got to you. And so like give people that buffer. And look, some people are assholes. They exist too. Like not everyone's inherently good. And people as a whole probably aren't, but there's enough of us that are that you can find them and you don't have to deal with the ones who aren't. And it's that feeling of just like you got the opportunity with most people you meet to either be a positive thing they think about after that interaction or a shitty thing. So just choose to be the good one. You know, whether that's people that reach out to you and like, hey man, I was thinking about trying to do this weight loss, and like immediately shoot themselves in the foot with, but blah, 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 blah. Like, why not cheer them on? It doesn't cost you anything. But, you know, maybe you feel like you're
Send them a thumbs up.
right?
Fist bump.
Yeah, you know, like, come on, man. Like, I want you to do better, but I can't do it for you. Like, it's got to be your journey, but I got your back. If you got questions, ask. So it's good, and I'm definitely interested in trying other stuff. I'd really like to do ayahuasca. I'd like to do some DMT stuff and see those things. I think that shift in perspective, especially with mushrooms, the biggest one that happens with a big dose of mushrooms is you realize other things exist, and now you have a doorway to them.
What do you mean?
Everything feels connected. Like I'm far from total hippie and like want to hug a tree, and I'm not vegan. But on a pretty good dose of mushrooms, like steak would probably bum me out. Because like you definitely feel the difference of like it's a life form. Like I'm definitely bummed out. It would bother me to like cut down a tree, like on mushrooms, because it's a life. And like maybe think about, you ever see like a time lapse video of a plant growing, and you actually get to see it chase the sun and do all this? I think we'd feel really differently about plants if they operated at the same pace that we operate. We'd be like, oh, that thing's fucking alive.
Right. Yeah, you don't see it. Yeah.
But because it's so slow, it's easy to write off as not a thing. I mean, there's a reason that grass puts off the smell when we cut it. It's to warn the other grass that something's going wrong. And so it changes its chemical structure. Like, these are alive things that are part of an organism. And so I definitely feel more part of the whole when that's happening.
And then maybe it's just allowing you to get somewhere that you otherwise wouldn't be able to get to.
Yep.
Much like the feeling of working out, much
Right.
like having a cup of coffee,
Yep.
much like having alcohol, right? I mean, these are all things that's the whole point in taking them, is they perhaps take you to sometimes good, sometimes not good. In your case of wanting to kill that kid.
Yeah, right.
But
But it didn't.
takes you to a different spot. Music.
Music, right. And, the biggest changes I would say between, like, say, alcohol or THC or cannabis or pot or mushrooms is, like, alcohol, cocaine are, like, anti-psychedelic. They only play to your own ego, and you're the most important person on earth. Pot, people get a little paranoid, right? Fucking maybe you should. Maybe there's some things that you're not addressing. Listen. What are you nervous about and what are you feeling anxious about? Maybe this is a thing that you need to think about. And same goes for those. Like, no one's ever smoked enough pot to go to the bar that they need to take their shirt off and fight a guy. That's not how that situation works. Whereas alcohol changes that side and the ego gets really boosted. Instead, you get way more introverted and get a little bit paranoid about the shit that comes out of your mouth and think, maybe want to be a little bit quieter. Like, I'd rather go to that place than a group full of drunks or a bunch of dudes that are coked up. People that are considering more of what they thought about and how they're part of the bigger picture or any of that, right? And, about as close as I can get to big picture stuff is, like, I think we're all part of something bigger, which is just, like, the universe. And we all get to be part of that. And there's amazing things that we get to experience in our limited time here on the planet, plus the limited bit of the universe we even get to go look at. Like, it's all here on Earth, whereas there's this infinite everything elsewhere. But there's awesome shit here and amazing people.
Yeah.
And that's rad. Be part of it. Don't be part of the problem. And maybe status quo for a lot of it's the problem. So shake it up. But have a smart enough vessel and message that the shakeup doesn't scare people off. Because they ain't those people too.
Did you ever feel any, not necessarily like a withdrawal, but like kind of bummed out after you come down from like mushrooms or something like that?
For sure. Like, there's definitely, so the bad trip I had, the fuck up there was I tried to do 2 big doses on 2 days in a row, which is rule number 1 you're not supposed to do. Like, you should have like a 4 or 5 day time between so that your levels can reset. Again, new dangling those and new navigating those waters. I didn't know. And bad trips happen, man. And with that said, the bad trip I had is still probably the most informative growth I've had from any of those that I've taken. The other ones have been fun. I mean, it's cool walking around the woods and everything's nice and shiny and you're giggly, but I didn't learn a ton. I mean, another one is like, take it and find like isolation. Find a dark room that doesn't have a bunch of sound and just whatever they want to do is what shows up. But
Sounds like a scary roller coaster.
Man.
be willing to do that work.
Yeah.
Like, that's the hand the keys over, right? That, like, this was the choice today. Now, with that said, like, I haven't done any in a year and a half. And it just hasn't felt like the right time.
Do you see things that aren't there?
No, not all the time.
Like I says, no, not all the time.
You mean in general?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, when you're on mushrooms.
He can't even say it. He's like, mushrooms.
You definitely, like, there's visuals for sure, right? Like, the best way I can describe it is like, it's altered. Like, one of the hikes we were on had this big overlook. And so what I saw from that, like, it wasn't like trees were talking to me or any of this fairy tale bullshit. Like, I didn't have cartoon animals show up or it was
Gotta do more.
Probably not wrong. It was this overlook of mountains and trees and stuff like that. And there was a point where, like, all the trees looked like the end of peacock feathers. And so they were all just super colorful and swaying with the wind. That's about the biggest shift in visuals.
Yeah.
Or I was in Sedona and, like, looking at a mountain, and when things had kicked in, like, the mountain that I was looking at looked like it was made in Minecraft. It got really geometric.
Pixelated.
Yep. And you're like, all right, probably time to head in. Like, no, we're there.
You get any like ideas for like the company when you're taking anything?
No, more just personal stuff, right? Like, and listen to it. Like, so sitting in Sedona, I was in a backyard and like looking at that mountain. And in the backyard I was in, there were like 4 or 5 rabbits cruising around, like eating grass. And so I was into watching that. But I wanted to go inside and find a dark room and let that work happen. But I couldn't bring myself to get out of the chair because I thought it was going to scare the rabbits away.
Oh,
So that type of stuff kicks in.
Yeah.
Like something special's happening in the moment right now. Don't fuck with it. So that type of stuff changes inside your head.
you try some shrooms.
I've been since Mark and I went to Austin.
Yep, it's a
hanging
good
out.
place.
I've been trying to convince him, but hopefully we get a shaman in here and do some ayahuasca.
Oh shit!
Well, we had
Let me know. I'm down.
Let's do it.
we had somebody
today?
we had somebody on the podcast.
I got my photo shoot done. My schedule's clear.
There you go. We had somebody on the podcast recently that gave me some mushrooms, and I actually tried them.
Oh,
One day, just kind of like just walking around. I didn't feel a ton of impact from it because I just took like one.
okay. So probably like a half.
Really small amount, but I took some on a flight as well, which was
Interesting move.
bold
strategy.
Well, because I was like, I'm gonna like just
Blasted.
close my eyes and listen to music.
Okay.
So
Well, then
I
that's
closed-
not the worst.
I closed my eyes and listened to music, and I was just seeing all these crazy colors and stuff.
Yeah.
And I was probably halfway like falling asleep, and the flight attendant like bumped me to like wake me up for food or whatever, and the guy was like, "You were probably having the coolest dream ever." He's like, "You had this big ass smile on your
Nice.
face," and I was
That's
like,
dope.
"Yeah," and he's like, "I just need you to select your food or whatever." So,
Oh, man.
But yeah, it was enjoyable.
That's great to hear.
But what
I'm
they
happy,
talk
Mark.
about and what they talk about with my interest in it stemmed from what they talk about changes brain with neurologically. That's the word.
That sounds great.
Someone
Yeah.
dub in a better word there.
Nah.
We don't have the machine for that yet.
Shit.
We're
We get
getting
that
it, though.
technology. Is that kind of throughout time, like the way that you problem solve kind of cuts these patterns into your brain, right? So like if this is the route that we always solve this problem, that's the one that gets more cut in. And so your synapses fire in that order, and that's the way this works. And so the other options over time, think about them growing dusty. They don't get used. They kind of fall apart and break down the way like a road would if you're never using it. And so what mushrooms or LSD do at a microdosing level, start repairing and clearing off those other pathways, giving you more options to problem solve and more options to address problems and maybe go to understanding and compassion and empathy instead of anger and the ego. And I would say empathy is probably a trait that I was able to get through the last couple years of surgery and the psychedelic use is one I probably wouldn't have said was real strong prior to that, would be empathy.
Damn, that's tight. It's I don't know for sure, but I think it's decriminalized now in Denver.
It is.
Yeah.
It's decriminalized, so you can't buy it.
Right, but
And it's still illegal federally. There's a bunch of bullshit, but look, man, we're getting
one
there.
step, right?
We're getting there, and then Missouri does something like weird abortion laws. So, like, our country's very strange.
But I think it's going to go on the ballot.
I just wish at some point
For
old fucking
California.
white men would leave women and their bodies alone. Whatever they want to do is not your fucking business. Just
Just go for
leave
it.
them a be,
Just
man.
Yeah. Maybe let them vote on it.
Right. Maybe let them vote on
Yeah.
it, right? Like, what do you
Maybe.
guys think?
Maybe.
Old white guy, we're here to, like, let me get this right. Abortion, absolutely against the law, criminal punishment. Same for the doctors. What about like even birth control? Like, no, we can't make that something you just have. That goes against this. What about maybe mandate men wearing condoms? What? It's uncomfortable.
No way.
It doesn't feel as
That
good.
is uncomfortable. Like, come on, pick a fucking route. Like, just let people make decisions, dude. That's what I want. It's like, I don't like adults being told what they should or shouldn't do. That's really where I fall on most political topics. Is you're an adult, you pay your taxes, cool. Do whatever it is the fuck you want. You want to tattoo your face? Sounds great. Want to smoke pot all day? I don't give a shit. Want to take heroin? I don't care either. Does that affect me? Nope. Sounds good. But you get the consequences of those actions. You know, in the same way that, like, you know,
Makes sense.
I have smoked a lot of pot with the last couple years of surgery, and I live in a state that it ain't legal. There's consequences for that. But that's better than me being addicted to opiates as far as I'm concerned, and I'll deal with the consequences if I have to face it.
Yeah, pick your poison, right?
Right.
What have you been up to lately?
Travel, man.
Yeah, traveling around.
Traveling around. It's kind of what I want to do more of, is hit the road. And
You're in NorCal. What are you doing in NorCal?
I really just wanted to come out for a week.
Oh, my God.
Wanted to come out and train super training for a week and be here and exist in a place, right? Instead of it just be go, 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 work, 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 bail. And so if go home for 2 days and then leave for 6 and go home for a day and leave for 5, or like I got a job that allows it. So like, why can't I go live in Reykjavik for 3 months? I don't have an answer. So I'm just going to go and do as I want to.
Cool.
That's kind of the plan.
You visiting anybody else?
I'll go see Kelly tomorrow and go hang out with him a little bit, and then down to LA for the Anaheim Fit Expo with Monster, and then home, and then out to Pennsylvania for the Val event that Rob and Dana are putting on at their gym for the Veterans Outreach Workout. It's going to be really awesome. We've got, I'm not even sure I should be on the list of people because it's like Rob and Dana and Jay Cutler and like Casey Mitchell, and then Brooke Ince and Charity Witt and Bonnie Schroeder, and like this great group of people. And it's like, Matt Vincent. I'm like, what's he there for? What does he even do?
You're a world champ, bro.
Yeah.
That's a big freaking deal.
I know. I threw rocks in the field, man. You know.
That's cool, man.
It is cool, and I'm stoked on it.
Yeah.
You know, I want to travel more.
That's some people that you've been stalking for a long time.
Yeah. I was stalking them for a long time. It's just that feeling of like, well, so really weird. Like first interaction with Rob was I was in LA, he was in LA, and we had been exchanging messages for a bit. And so finally he's there. I was like, dude, let's go get lunch. And we go have lunch. And he gets a call, I guess like a little bit through lunch, and it's his brother. And essentially that call was set up as like, I don't know this guy. Just give me a call halfway through lunch in case I need a reason to leave. You know? Like, you get stuck with people you don't know. And
yeah.
I mean, dude, you know how it is, especially like at your point, right? Like, how many people want to pitch you the greatest business idea, and they need your pocketbook and horsepower to make this thing successful? And so you never know what my intentions are with lunch. And so I fully get it. And so like we finished up lunch and then podcasted, and said his brother called him later, and like his brother's like, all right, so what did he want? What do you want from us? He's like, nothing. He just, like, how do you say, like, hey, man, you're a 35-year-old guy and I'm 35. I think we'd be friends. do you want to hang out?
Hey, that's a sick bike.
Yeah, right. Like, I'd like to hang out more with you if you think that would be cool. like we're both busy. So it's weird, but yeah, like him or Windler or any of these people, right? I got rad friends. And I want to be valuable to that friendship as just a dude you can count on that isn't, I don't fucking need a thing from you, man. You know? I got my own thing, and I'll forge my own path. I just want the raddest people around that I can learn from, too.
Makes sense to me. Where can people find some of your stuff and you?
I hate Matt Vincent on Instagram.
Could say that again.
Yeah, you're right. He's the worst. YouTube is Matthew Vincent. I think if you search it at this point, Matthew Vincent pops up everything. And then thehate.com is where the apparel is.
And you got any plans for the next couple months? Traveling anywhere else? You mentioned the PA thing.
Where are we going?
Because you travel a lot. I mean, you travel overseas and stuff too.
I don't have any overseas travel planned. I'd like to head to Iceland and spend some time there again, maybe October, November, but it's starting to get cold there by that point, and dark.
Cold.
It's not crazy cold there. Look, Minnesota's worse than Iceland as far as cold goes. Iceland's an island, so it's still pretty temperate. It's surrounded by water, so it doesn't ice over. It ain't Fargo.
Right.
It's the 4 hours of daylight that get rough. You know, that like, oh, cool, we got sunlight we got gray from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. and then it's dark again.
Yikes.
That gets really tough to adjust to. But I want to go see Haffy's new gym. Like, I want to go train and spend some time over there and just be in that place again.
How cool was it when he was on that ESPN special and he talked openly about
Just
PEDs?
being honest, dude.
That rocked. I thought that was amazing.
Dude, he's really an amazing guy, and I've always felt nothing but really welcomed in his house and being a friend and those type of things. And I'm stoked for the guy. I love seeing what they're doing. And
Has he ever bashed you over the head with his dick?
I'm really glad he hasn't. It's
I'm
got to
just
be.
curious.
It's got to be terrifying,
It's
right?
just something that popped in my head. I don't know why. It might have been the mushrooms.
It's very, very strange because he and Kelsey are friends, right? And I don't really have any interest in watching my friends fuck. But I'd watch like a trailer of that to figure out the mechanics of it.
Yeah, how's this working?
How's this
That's
even
what Joe
happen?
Rogan was talking
He's
about.
450 fucking pounds.
Yeah.
He weighs 4 times what his chick weighs. That doesn't exist.
Hold
Yeah.
it back.
Whew.
What's the
I
dynamic?
think
of
she
it all?
just climbs on like
Yeah.
spider monkey, just attaches like a flying squirrel. And
Yeah.
you know what I'm more concerned
The
about with someone
possibilities.
like him is for her. How much heat does he have to produce in bed? Like I
Oh,
know
he
what
must be
being
a
in bed
million
with me
degrees.
is like is the worst. Like I'm a son. Much less if I weighed twice as much what I currently
Mm-hmm.
weigh. He's twice our size. Ugh. The sheets are just wet. Thank God he lives there. It's just constantly
guys-
air
That
conditioned.
AC's blaring.
Those guys go through like 4 or 5 shirts in a workout. They just have to keep
Jesus.
changing them all the time.
Biggest shirts of all time. Like I just can't imagine stepping on the scale and seeing the first numbers of 4 and then being like, sick.
Yeah. Well, and that's like his job. It has to be.
Has to be. Well,
You
that
know?
was talking to Stan about their diet. Like what did, everyone wanted to hear this big weird drug thing about what they changed,
Oh, yeah.
for the Arnold. And he's like, we didn't change anything. It was, we added 36 eggs a day to their diet to what they were currently eating. We added 36
Mhm.
extra eggs a day.
That cholesterol.
Woof.
Yeah.
Big boys.
And you're doing vertical diet now.
Playing with it. So on training days, I will do vertical diet in the pre and post training meal.
Hmm.
And if I'm feeling really gassed at night, I'll probably add some rice in. But if I'm not training, I'll stick to carnivore.
Keep it simple.
Keep it simple, man. It's just 3 rules.
Right.
It's hard to fuck those up.
Do you make like monster mash and stuff like that too? You mess with
Yeah,
that?
yeah. I mean, that was being on the road for the last 10 days in the truck. I was really trying to see like what can I maintain, basically eating out of gas stations, my own food, and not doing restaurants. So like you can swing by any Chinese takeout place on the planet and buy white rice.
That sounds racist.
I didn't say Oriental. You can get white rice. And so like I had that, and then I had pre-cooked a bunch of ribeye and chopped it to pieces. And so like, you're good for 2 or 3 days. And I was out of an ice chest. I would just go into a gas station and mix the two and heat it up. And I put mustard and sriracha on it, which are both 0 calories, and hit the road. Feel great.
Simple, right?
Yeah. Body digest it well. Like, I think that's another, man, you just don't get that bloated feeling because your body can use it. And it eats it well. I mean, Stan says that, right? Like, I eat the foods that my body likes, not the foods I like.
Right.
It's a shame he wasn't ever big enough to be to be a
I-
bodybuilder.
He probably needed to get 40 more pounds.
Oh my God.
You traveled everywhere. Where are some spots that are like a must see before people kick the bucket?
Iceland's one of them. I can't seem to stop going. I go at least once a year. It's just, for whatever reason, for me, the frequency there lines up with mine. And like, I immediately feel home the second I'm off the airplane. Victoria, Canada is a really cool spot. That's somewhere no one goes. But we competed there every year.
Is that east or west?
West Coast.
Okay.
So it's near Vancouver, but a little smaller town, Victoria. Really, really cool. I like Canada, man. Canada's really cool. People are nice. A little bit less bullshit. Maybe, and I wonder if that comes from this, right? Because they still have hockey as part of their culture, and people fight. Like, Canadians will have a go, and then go have a beer. Like, we can have an issue and sort it out, and I don't have to call assault charges like they're like you're also not safe. Like it's also a small enough place that like if you run your mouth, there's a good chance you get hit.
I mean, in hockey, they'll tap each other
Just
and then they fight.
yeah, let's go.
Like it's like a known thing.
What
Like,
we're
didn't even do anything illegal. Just bumped the guy and like,
Right.
all right, you're a goon on your team. I'm a goon on my team. We're gonna fight.
They also possibly can talk shit better than anyone except for the UK folks.
Really?
Man, they're good. They can chirp.
They're usually pretty funny too.
Very,
a
very
lot of
funny.
Canadians I've met they have a good sense of humor.
Last, I was up in Toronto and I was at Anchor Bar, which is the original buffalo wing place out of Buffalo, and
Now
so
we're
they've got
talking.
one now in Toronto. So I was sitting there and there's like 20 screens in the bar, like sports on, and it's hockey night in Canada. So like everything's hockey. The Leafs are playing. And like Montreal's playing, and so like all the TVs are on this shit, and like the bar is empty except for this table of like 9 Canadian dudes behind me, really into hockey. Myself at the bar, and this old white guy from the States, like probably 65, comes up to the bar and he's like, "Excuse me, ma'am, can we turn one of the TVs on to March Madness for the NCAA tournament?" And she just looks at him and goes like, "It's hockey night." And he's like, "Oh, I know. I was just wondering if one TV we could watch basketball." And I hear from the table behind me, and they're like, "Hey, bud, she fucking said it's hockey night. Better fuck figure it out." And then you hear them for the next 30 minutes, like, fucking like we're going to change the channel to basketball. You think we're going to fucking stop watching hockey? You got to come over here to the bar. Better fuck figure it out. Y'all just chirping to themselves under their voice. And I'm like, Jesus. I'm like, get it together.
Things are getting a little heated, huh?
Yeah, the lady said it's fucking hockey night. What are you still going on about? She's not changing the channel.
Fucking inflection. It's fucking hockey night.
Oh, it makes me so happy. What's this all about? Fucking guys are great.
All right, man. Always great to have you on the show.
Always fun.
Super proud of you. Great to see that the knee replacement's going well.
It's going
I saw
well,
you
man.
squatting 225 in there.
I farted on during that one. It got real loud.
Yeah. It's different when you fart when it's pressurized like that.
It's totally just snaps out of there.
Yeah, that's a good way to
Shot
describe it.
through a tunnel.
Mhm.
It's like a hadron collider.
Everybody knows it was a fart, but like no one's really 100% sure. So sometimes it doesn't even go. Like no one even says anything. Sometimes.
Right. You're like, maybe that was just your knee popping or
Yeah.
the back of the bar.
Just the name.
Yeah, those bars they make a lot of
Ton of popping bars you got in there, Mark.
weird noises.
But yeah, man, it feels good being able to lift again.
It's awesome.
So it's been a hell of a road. So I'm happy to.
And that felt fine. 225.
Fine.
Cheating like an old fat guy on a box squat.
Damn right. It'll be box squats and curls, leg extensions for me here on out. I don't give a shit. As long as I can like make my legs sore again,
Mm-hmm.
success.
Yeah. Awesome. Fuck yeah. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later.